Welcome back to the Rodcast, Tuesday edition of the Rodcast, and we are loaded as usual. Game week for the Longhorns, so we got some Sark sound to get to. We'll hear from the head coach coming up when we go behind the burnt orange curtain. It was the debut of Texas men's basketball last night. Unfortunately, good news, bad news there. Did lose the game, but damn, Trey Johnson is good. That is, we'll get into it because, it's good news, bad news there. If you're a Longhorn fan, you got to feel good about what you saw. But of course, we'll get into breaking it down. We got my man Patrick to help us do that. We'll talk about the Monday Night Football game last night, Kansas City Chiefs. We told you how it would happen. Yeah, it's going to be a close game. It's going to be a tight game, and they're going to pull it out in the clutch. That's what they do now. They just flip the switch on you. They did it against the Bucs last night. We'll get into that coming up. We'll also dive into some other NFL news, notes, and nuggets. Unfortunately, I believe we were also accurate in our prediction that the injury to Dak Prescott, the hamstring injury, would be pretty severe. The reports are that it is worse than anticipated. So we'll talk about that too coming up on the show. We'll dive into all of that. And of course, we got your usual favorites on the show. We got Who Said That. We got What the Facts, What the Stats. We got Who Said That. We got Off the Record. We got it all coming up on the show. Topic for the big fat poll today that'll also be coming up a little bit later on in this hour. And of course, we're doing a lot of breakdown. We'll start previewing the Texas-Florida matchup coming up for the Longhorns this weekend. But before we do any of that, let's introduce you to the rest of the crew. He's one of the hardest working members of the ARN family. Got a hustler spirit, period. Not sure what he's paid, but pretty damn sure the man is underpaid. Ain't no 401k for this hustler, and he's a hustle man of many talents. It's our friend, co-host, and neighbor. It is Patrick Davis, y'all. What's going on, Patrick? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. It was up and down night last night. Some positives, some negatives. It was at least something that was as advertised last night, so that was very good to see. And then I had a couple things yesterday that were just really funny of me. Just there was something that genuinely made me laugh yesterday, and I don't know if it's going to be funny to retell, but it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen, which was I got home from work, and I'm pulling like the trash cans in to get picked up in the morning, and a guy is walking, and he's got like a little like Chihuahua mix, like little dog walking and a baby stroller, right? So I think he's always watching this kid. He's got the dog. And he looks over and he waves, and the dog kind of looks. And then all I see out of the baby stroller is two more Chihuahua mixes heads pop out and start barking at me. And it was like, there ain't no kid. It's just more little Chihuahuas. It's just more of these little yappy dogs.
These are just the dogs that probably can't walk, so they put them in the stroller.
No, it was just to see that pop out of what popped out of the baby stroller is two more dogs start barking at me. And the guy just goes, huh? Like he can't even. He's like, I'm sorry. I know. I started laughing.
That's no baby.
It's not a baby.
You had like this whole. You had this reverence and the respect for. It was like, oh, it's a baby. I gotta be careful. It's like, no, that's just two more dogs.
Just two more yappy little dogs.
In the baby stroller though too, because you could have put them in a wagon. I've seen people put the dogs in a wagon, like a little wagon. You put them in a wagon, but the stroller, that's a statement. You're making a statement there when you got dogs in the baby stroller.
And when you have,
the statement you're making too.
When they're all similar dogs, but one's walking and two are in the stroller, it's a great look. I was a fan of that one. And then I also at night realized how old I'm getting, that I just stood outside and watched the rain, like in commercial breaks.
That was fantastic.
Just walk past and just stand out the front door, just looking outside, just like, I forgot what this is like.
It's been months. It's been months since it's rained like that. It's been raining like it'll rain for like 5 to 10 minutes and then it'll stop. But we haven't had like a downpour in a long time. And last night, you got it. Got just a downpour, and it was fantastic. I'm with you. It was good. I didn't go outside to watch it like you, but I was not. The dogs were scared because there was some thunderstorms too. But no, I didn't mind it at all. I was happy. I'm glad. We need more of it, actually. Come on, keep it coming.
Yeah, no, I know. I know the thunderstorm because I woke up a couple times last night.
Oh no, it started shaking. I got the house rattled a couple of times.
Yeah, I would wake up and then I'd be like, "What just happened? Why did I wake up?" And I wouldn't figure it out. And then I would hear a little more thunder and go, "Oh, okay." Because you're like in dream world back into it, and you didn't. And then you're like, okay, so go back to bed. Nothing weird's happened. You're good. It's just.
No, I was fine with it though. I mean, I'm with you, man. It's been I can't even track it. I'm sure I'll find somebody on my timeline that's a weather guy that'll tell us how long it's been since we've got that much rain. But it has been way too damn long. So it's a beautiful thing.
It was a very good thing. Let me introduce my co-host. He's a proud alumni of DBU. He's got more papers than Dunder Mifflin and watches more film than Siskel and Ebert. He is the new Rod, father of Austin Sports Radio, Mr. Rod Babers.
I appreciate the intro as always. Yeah, we got a lot to get into, so we'll review the Monday Night Football game last night. Of course, the DeAndre Hopkins impact. It's as good as advertised. I mean, I think we all thought, oh man, this is not good for the rest of the NFL when DeAndre Hopkins went to the Chiefs and confirmed. And I'll give you the numbers. We all knew it. I'm not telling you something you didn't know, but I'll give you the numbers to confirm the last 2 weeks of the DeAndre Hopkins impact with the Kansas City Chiefs. And yeah, it's a scary situation going on there in Kansas City. Well, for the rest of the NFL anyway. So we'll get to that. But of course, we'll talk about the debut of the 5-star true freshman for the Longhorns as well, which was, I mean, he was absolutely spectacular. Trey Johnson. You told us, Patrick, he was going to be good. Did you think he was going to be that good?
No, there's. I'll tell you some. I'll tell you some of the things that really stood out for him in that effort. Wow. But no, you don't expect. You don't expect. You know what? Here I can even tell you this one right off the top. It'll be in Horn headlines, but I can tell you.
Of course.
Cooper Flagg, #1 overall pick. He's playing Maine, right? Mm-hmm. 18.7 rebounds, 5 assists. Good line.
That's a great line.
It's a great line for a debut.
Yeah.
Trey Johnson's line was better.
He was.
So his line was 29, 5, and 4. So he had a huge impact as well. And so that was, I'll just say that is why you say you don't expect, because you expect more of the Cooper Flagg line. You expect like, oh no, he did say 15 to 20 points, really good game, impact in other parts of it, rebounding and assist. That's a really good game for a true freshman to start off his college career. But for Trey Johnson to do what he had to do in that game. But we'll get further into it as we go down and look at some of those numbers and break down what went wrong and what went right for Texas in that game.
Yeah, you can't be in too bad of a mood if you're a Longhorns about I know there are things obviously to critique about it, and they lost the game, but it's still really early in the season. But when you see a performance like that, you got to be a little giddy.
And I will throw this out to anyone who wants to throw out the loss to an unranked team. Remember, preseason rankings are not very accurate. So we don't know. And Ohio State may not be a ranked team at the end of the year. I'm not saying they will be. I'm just saying we understand in today's basketball where every team is 70 to 80% new, it's very hard to have very accurate preseason rankings. I mean, we saw Gonzaga just take it to Baylor, and they're two ranks apart. And so is that going to be that seemed like the worst loss to me because it was bad. But
no, it's a good point. No, you're right about that. We don't really know. We don't know.
Hey,
really
and for everybody else, we didn't lose to South Florida, and the Texas A&M did. So, you got an Aggie loss in there.
Aggie tears are always something.
Make it a little bit easier.
Find some joy in some Aggie tears. There you go. You know your audience, Patrick. You do. All right. We'll get some Texas basketball discussion. We'll talk about that. We'll be talking about that all throughout the show, obviously. But let's get to this Kansas City Chiefs win. They continue they're undefeated to start to the 2024 season, and now looking better than ever with that Monday night win over the Bucs. We'll get to that, but first let's get the Horn headlines with Patrick Davis. So let's get updated, let's get educated, let's get informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the NBA, the Spurs lost their game with the Clippers 113-104 after a hot start. Victor Wembanyama had 24 points, 13 rebounds, and 9 blocks in the game, but the Spurs were outscored by 13 in the fourth quarter after squandering a 26-point first-quarter lead. Greg Popovich missed his second game due to an illness, but is said to be resting at home, hoping to rejoin the team soon. The Rockets got a big 109-97 win over the Knicks, with Alperen Sengun putting up 25 points and 14 rebounds. And the Mavericks drop one to the Pacers 134-127 in an offensive battle with 11 players scoring in double figures for the two teams. There are no NBA games today for Election Day. In the NFL, the Chiefs stayed undefeated in a 30-24 overtime win over the Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield led a late touchdown drive to tie the game, but the Chiefs won the coin toss in overtime and scored on a Kareem Hunt touchdown to win the game. DeAndre Hopkins had his biggest game for the Chiefs so far with 8 catches for 86 yards and 2 touchdowns. And in college basketball, number 6 Gonzaga made a statement on opening night with a 101-63 win over the number 8 Baylor Bears, while projected number 1 overall pick Cooper Flagg impressed in his debut with 18 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists in a Duke win over Maine. Texas lost their opener to Ohio State 80-17 in the Hall of Fame series in Las Vegas. Trey Johnson set a new record for freshman scoring for Texas in a debut game with 29 points while adding 5 rebounds and 4 assists. but hot shooting from Ohio State proved too much. Texas will look to get in the win column on Friday against Houston Christian at the Moody Center. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. We'll get back to some Texas basketball discussion here in a second because we're going to go behind the Burn-Ons curtain next segment. So if we don't get to Texas basketball, we'll do it then, and also hear from Steve Sarkisian talking about their upcoming opponent for the Texas football team, the Florida Gators. But let's talk about the game last night. And, oh, man, I thought the Bucks, just for a second, I thought the Bucks might have given the Chiefs their first loss of the season. When they went down and drove, it was at 81 yards in 10 plays, and it was 27 seconds left. I was sure they were going to go for 2. I remember talking to my wife, and she asked me, say, are they going to go for 2? I was like, oh, yeah, you go for 2. I was like, if you're on the road, because essentially when you're on the road, in a game like that, you're stealing that game. I mean, that's
Yes.
you're gonna steal that. You're gonna steal a win on the road. Anytime, it's like robbing a bank, right? It's all about getting the hell out. It's all about the exit strategy, right? You're not trying to stick around for too long. The longer you stick around, the more chance for things to go wrong. And I thought that was a miscalculation by Todd Bowles. I thought you go for 2 in that situation every time. You may lose it, but the chances are you were gonna lose it anyway.
Yes.
To the most clutch quarterback in the most clutch team with the best, head coach at home. You were going to, a team that's going for a three-peat. Chances are you were going to lose it anyway. All right. So you're trying to steal a game. You go for 2 then. You had all the momentum, 27 seconds left. I think you go for 2 in that situation. And honestly, I like Todd Bowles because he had a good defensive a good defensive game plan because he kind of switched his strategy. Usually he's a blitz happy guy, and he didn't blitz that much in this game. But the reason that he gave as to why he didn't go for 2, it doesn't add up to me. It doesn't. I don't know if he just threw something out there. He thought coach speak. I'll just whatever. But the reason that he gave here, I think we have the audio. Patrick, play it for the folks. This is Todd Bowles in the postgame giving the reason as to why he decided to kick the extra point instead of going for 2 for the win.
Going for 2 after the touchdown there at the end?
Very minor. We wanted to get it to overtime with the wet conditions on the field. We thought we had to go in overtime instead of going for 2. So we had our shots. We lost the game.
I don't know, in the past you mentioned you had communications upstairs about decisions, analytically, things of that nature. Did they advise you not to go for 2? What was?
We went for 1. We took our shots. We had our chances all game. We just lost the game. It didn't come down to that.
Okay. He did mention the wet conditions, and that's why I would think the wet conditions is why you want to get out of Dodge. And they just went down in what? It went 81 yards in less than 2 minutes and 10 plays. The wet conditions didn't affect him.
So,
I don't know. It didn't make sense to me.
The wet conditions, and this is the one thing I thought of why he may in the moment decide not to go for 2, or why it after seeing it all and then seeing, all right, maybe that's what changed him, was that first throw to Cade Otton, where it was a really good throw from Baker. It was a little low maybe, but it was where only Cade Otton can catch it. But in that weather, you're not going to catch that ball because it's just too low and reaching over, and it's just really hard to make that catch, right? I think that may have skewed him to what takes away, like, how many plays do we have where we can get a ball past this Kansas City defense and get it into this, but we can't throw it. Like, you have to put it to where it's pretty easy to catch. And we got lucky that McDuffie just read the play wrong on the touchdown and basically jumped on the run and let his man go free in the back of the end zone so we could get an easy touchdown. But they're like, if they just guard us on a pass, we're screwed, and we can't run the ball. We haven't run the ball all game. Like, we haven't run the ball well. So I think that was the only reason. I still think he should have gone for it. I'm with you. He should have gone for it.
No, I got you.
But when I saw that play, I think that was kind of, that may have been when he says the wet conditions of going, man, I think we got lucky to get in the end zone. And I think that no one's going to be catching the ball. And he did not realize he was playing Kansas City in Kansas City.
Yeah, I'm like, that's lucky. Then
you're looking at your team and not the team across the field.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes you can't play the hand, you got to play the man, and you're going up against the most clutch team in the league. They get another chance to beat you. Chances are they're going to close the deal. Andy Reid was asked about it. This is how you know you made the wrong decision, though. This is Andy Reid in the post game. They asked him about the decision that Todd Bowles made to kick the field goal instead of going for 2 in regulation. Here's what Andy Reid had to say.
year in regulation?
No, but I'm glad it didn't.
Exactly, right? He's glad that he didn't go for 2 because even Andrew was thinking, "Oh man, yeah,
No, I
they got all
mean,
the momentum."
you saw
This is a-
Baker Mayfield's face when they lost the toss.
Because he knew,
He knew,
which we all knew.
we knew when what how many seconds were left on the clock? 22, something like that.
27.
27 when they and you still went.
Because
27.
he had like didn't they have like 2 or 3 timeouts?
Yeah, they had all
their
3 timeouts left,
Yeah,
and he
I
went
believe,
27.
yeah.
Ooh, I don't know about that one.
Yeah, exactly. You're like,
Ooh,
that might be too much time.
Oh, I mean, if it starts raining harder, maybe they can get away with this.
No, I am with you. Everybody was exactly because everybody knew.
It's the Chiefs.
Baker knew.
And that's the deal. Is I go, yeah, I think in plenty of teams in wet conditions in a game that's not that high scoring, you may be able to get away with let's go to overtime. And I'll trust our defense. We've been playing pretty well. And let's go out there and go. The Chiefs are not that team, and especially not on the road, especially not in Kansas City.
Yeah, man. You got to go steal that win. You got to be trying to rob a bank, man. You got to get out. Like that's the exit strategy. Yeah, as soon as you had them in that position, you had them down. At least they chanced to win and just end it. You should have taken that chance because like I said, chances are you were going to lose that game anyway, especially if you went to overtime. And that's exactly what happened. I mean, you were down anyway. You were down Mike Evans. You were down Chris Godwin. I mean, you were pretty much, I'm saying lucky to be in the game, but it was, I think, in my opinion, it was the clutch, kind of the clutch gene of Baker Mayfield there that went down 81 yards, 10 plays in the last 2 minutes. You got all the momentum. Your team believes in that moment. They feel it. I think you take it. I think you take that chance. You go.
No, I mean,
I think it came back to bite him.
This version of Baker Mayfield, I have no problem putting the ball in his hand for that 2-point conversion and saying
he was feeling it.
You just took us on this improbable drive here at the end of the game.
Come on.
in the conditions without one sure-handed wide receiver.
Yep. Come on now.
And you just marched us down the field, and we're not running the ball well. All that, you got us down there, and you scored. And the only critique we can give was you left too many seconds on the clock for Patrick Mahomes. I give him the shot just because I get the situation. I think Todd Bowles against a lot of teams, that's a fine answer, but the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, it's just not.
Yeah.
And also, if you've watched the Chiefs, they win the coin toss. They get the call. Everything breaks their way. If you throw an interception, it bounces off the guy's hands. It just happens for them right
That's
now.
That's why they're going for a 3-peat, and they're still undefeated. You got to also understand that.
The ball's going to bounce their way, man. The coin's going to flip their way. I get this. So I have to go
plan
ahead.
Accordingly.
Yeah, plan accordingly to not allow it go to that moment. Try and go get that and force their hand that they're going to try and get into field goal range and really force it as opposed to letting them kind of just take what they want to at the end of that half. No, they maybe still with 27 seconds go get a field goal. Completely possible that the Chiefs could have done that if you put Patrick Mahomes in that situation. But at the same part, I think that, it's not the worst coaching decision in the world, but when you talk about being 5-4 or 4-5, I think 5-4, your general manager or somebody, they may go out and get you somebody. They may go try and take this to another level. And now it's a little bit more questionable to go out and try and push this team ahead.
Yeah. Well, the scary thing is that now this team, Kansas City, starting to transform. The DeAndre Hopkins impact is truly starting to, I think, materialize on the field. I'll give you these numbers. So if you look at Patrick Mahomes, with and without DeAndre Hopkins now. All right. So we got weeks 1 through 7, pretty good sample size. Remember, he was off to the worst start of his career. For any season as a starter for Kansas City. So he's got 2 weeks now with DeAndre Hopkins. So a true number 1 wide receiver, basically. I mean, that's what you're talking about. Based on the numbers already for DeAndre Hopkins, they're already treating him like, he's a wide receiver 1. 25% target per route run, 14, almost 15% first downs per route run, 2.4 yards per route run. I mean, basically, he's taken over the number 1 wide receiver role for the Kansas City Chiefs. And since that's happened, Patrick Mahomes, 74% completion percentage, 276 yards passing per game, 5 passing touchdowns, 1 interception, 107.4 passer rating. Weeks 1 through 7, 6 passing touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 82 passer rating, 230 yards per game, and a 67% completion percentage. It's already starting to happen. Travis Kelce with DeAndre Hopkins, 24 receptions, 190 receiving yards, and 1 touchdown in 2 weeks. Without DeAndre Hopkins, he had 28 receptions in 7 weeks for 245 yards and 0 touchdowns. It's already juicing up Travis Kelce too, because it's less attention you can pay on him. You can't just roll all your coverage to Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce's had back-to-back games with 10 plus receptions for the second time in his career. And so he's pretty hot. And Patrick Mahomes has had 3 passing touchdowns for the first time this season in a game. Remember, he led the NFL with 38 games, a third of 3 plus passing touchdowns from 2018 to 2023. And the Chiefs scored 30 plus points for the first time this season. As a matter of fact, the Chiefs, it's crazy. They snapped an 18 game streak without scoring 30 plus points, including the playoffs. They had gone 18 straight games without scoring 30 plus points. Think about that. And yet still win. That was they were still winning games, winning Super Bowls, by the way, in that manner. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's ridiculous. And adding a guy in that you can tell now has motivation, and a player that, he didn't rely completely on speed. So the age is not as huge of a factor. It's a factor, but not as huge of a factor. And you just give him motivation again. Give him a reason to go out there and play hard and work hard in practice. And man, you're already seeing it now. It's just going to improve throughout the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, he is. We have some. Can we play that sound of DeAndre Hopkins in the post game here? He was being asked about, his time with the Chiefs. Listen to the end of this though, and how emotional he gets when he's asked about being playing with Patrick Mahomes and now being a part of the Kansas City Chiefs.
Responsible for 2 touchdowns today. How would you describe what this night was like for you?
Honestly, words can't describe it. Been patient. This is a dream come true to get my first win at a stadium like this, on a team like this. Just gotta keep building the momentum.
You had more time this week before the game to get ready. What do you think allowed for your involvement in this offense tonight?
The way these coaches help you prepare day in and day out. I come in early, I leave late. So, the coaches, it's not just me, it's everybody, just preparing me to come out here and be successful.
And what is it like catching these passes from Patrick Mahomes? You had some great catches tonight, but some great throws from him too.
I mean, I manifested this. I've seen this already. My mom, we knew this day would come, and I'm just being present in the moment.
Enjoy it.
Thank you.
All right. That's about playing with Patrick Mahomes. We knew this day would come. And if you know DeAndre Hopkins' history, you know that, this is a guy with the Texans at one point who was catching passes from having 1,000-yard seasons and all-pro and Pro Bowl seasons, catching passes from guys like Ryan Fitzpatrick and Case Keenum and Ryan Mallett and TJ Yates and Brandon Wheaton and Brian Hoyer. And, that bouncer. Then with Tennessee, guys, he had more receiving touchdowns last night than in 6 games with the Titans this season. So he was once again kind of in one of those places where they didn't know how to use him. Quarterbacks didn't really have the ability, the capability to be able to maximize that connection. And now he's with the best quarterback in the league and on a team getting ready to trying to three-peat, and he's at, kind of the end of his career. But man, trust me, guys, DeAndre Hopkins, you can already see, I just gave the numbers about the DeAndre Hopkins effect. He's about to, if he stays healthy, honestly, he's probably about to play some of the best football of his career. There's no doubt. I don't think he's probably been this motivated ever in his career, because he's never been this close to a Super Bowl. Never been this close. So it's scary thought, man. Scary thought for the rest of. I don't know how the rest of the league let this happen. I don't know what they were thinking. How did they let this happen? Somebody else, Buffalo somebody else could have traded for DeAndre Hopkins.
I know, and it's also when you watch that, and I know Houston, there's a history with everything, but you're like, man, I wish we could have got him back. How cool would that have been for all the fans who never wanted him to go anyway?
I know.
and bring him back, and then give him that, give another security blanket. If you had D-Hop and then Nico Collins coming back, that blanket.
Yep. Oh man. I mean, yeah, everybody's now with the. I say this is a new version of the Kansas City. The Kansas City Chiefs defense has been amazing. I mean, they actually they've scored. How about if you go look at their defense? Actually, has been the reason they're undefeated this season. It's not really their offense. The Chiefs allowed fewer than 28 points in 29 straight games, including the playoffs. The only team with a longer streak this millennium are the 2000-2002 Eagles with 34 straight games. So Spagnuolo is doing his thing with that defense, and now the offense I think is about to start rounding into form, which is now even scarier. It feels like we know the end of this story. I don't know who's gonna. Somebody's gotta throw a twist into this right now. The NFL storyline right now, because it does look like Kansas City's just about to win it again.
Who's the Eli Manning?
Yeah, this is what you need. You
Is
need
the
somebody
Eli
to throw.
Manning
Yeah, man.
that
So
comes in
who is?
and knocks
I don't
off
know.
that undefeated Patriots team that we thought there's not a chance anyone touches that team, and then the Giants did it. Who's that team?
Is it Baltimore? No.
I know the team that you could say, look, either
you're saying somebody that's going to surprise us because New York we didn't see coming.
No, look,
I think New York kind of.
I think you could say Detroit or Minnesota both fall into that category of having a quarterback that no one would think could beat Mahomes a year or two ago.
But the thing about Eli that year though, remember their recipe was it was their pass rush and their defense.
Yeah,
and they just had Eli was kind of he wasn't the star of the formula.
Well, that's Minnesota. Minnesota is built a lot.
Yeah, that's kind of what it is. Yeah, so to your point, it's not somebody you'll see coming. It's we didn't see New York coming. No. They played them at the end of the regular season too. We didn't see New York coming. Nobody did.
Yeah,
and then they just got better. Were they a wild card that year?
They might have been. I can't remember off the top of my head, but
you know what I mean. I can't remember. But to your point, though, yeah, it's somebody we don't see coming. Who is it that we don't see coming? Couldn't be the Texans. You don't see the Texans coming right now.
No, and that's not the Super Bowl either. It doesn't fully mean it unless it's an NFC team. But
yeah, it could be somebody in the AFC because NFC. You know, I don't really see a team like maybe the Eagles.
Maybe the Eagles, yeah.
Because the Eagles have gotten there before, and they're starting to get a little hot right now. I have no idea. That's a great point, though. Right now, it's not, to me, it's not going to be a dramatic, season, or at least a dramatic ending to the season, because I think we all know how the story ends. We can enjoy the ride, and we can watch all the ups and downs, but I feel like we know how the story ends, and I hope that's not the case. Usually the NFL surprises you. I don't know. I don't feel like we're going to be surprised this year. Because the Chiefs, they are what they are, and they're so clutch, and he's so clutch, and they just flip the switch.
Right now, it seems inevitable. It's still early enough in the season. You're like, you just expect something to go wrong along the way to make there be a little bit more strife than there's been so far. They just keep winning games, but yeah, as of right now, it's rough.
Yeah, I think I'm going to enjoy watching every game. I love it. I'm just saying, I think we know how the story ends. Overall, I think it's with the Kansas City Chiefs winning a third one in a row, which has never happened in NFL history. All right, I want to talk about Trey Johnson. What we'll do is we'll get to the break here a little bit. I'll say early, but we are actually on time, close to it. We'll get to the break, and behind the Burn Orange Curtain, we'll do a kind of a hybrid. We'll talk Texas basketball a little bit, and then we'll hear from Steve Sarkisian a little bit. So Texas basketball and Texas football we'll discuss when we go behind the Burnt Orange Curtain right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to talk some Texas football. We'll also talk some Texas basketball after we hear from Steve Sarkisian. He had his Monday media availability, getting ready for the Florida Gators. And I think the subject that a lot of Longhorn fans want to know about, which is, I think, top of mind for most Longhorn fans, most Longhorn football fans. Hey, what's the injury situation like post bye week? Are you guys as healthy as you've been? Here is start talking about the injuries to two of their major contributors, Isaiah Bond, the wide receiver, and Andrew Makuba, the safety, and update on both of those players.
Both those guys practiced today, which was really encouraging, and they both, look pretty good. Again, it's a Monday of a game week, and so how do they respond each day, I think, is important for Drew and Isaiah. But today was a good start.
All right, so that's the good news. Both of those guys practicing already. He'll give an update, but the truth is, you're not going to need him for Florida. I mean, they want to play versus Florida, they can. That's great, but you're not going to need them for Florida. The more film I watch on Florida, Florida's got good athletes, and Sark's going to talk about that. But with their third string quarterback situation, I just don't know how they're going to score a lot of points against Texas. I don't see them scoring.
I'd love to see Isaiah Bond back just because I think it will help this offense
no doubt.
start playing and help out Quinn a lot. So I'm all for it in that sense. Makuba especially, that one is, if he needs another week, give him another week because you should be able to do it. We saw what they were able to do before the bye without Makuba.
And then Jelani
McDonald played great. So I think there's a point where that one's a little bit easier, but just how this offense has been somewhat off. I think, if you could put Bond back in and get him feeling good as you go into that stretch, it would be helpful as well.
No, you're right about that. Speaking of the offense being off, Sark was asked about, what things they emphasized in the bye week, right? There were some things that the Longhorns needed to work on. We talked about those ad nauseum. Here's Sark when he was asked about what he wanted to fix during the bye week.
I think for us as a team, our mojo offensively is one thing I want to get back. Our whether you want to call it our sense of urgency, our intent, the way we go about our business. We've got a talented group of guys that are very competitive. They're tough. They work really hard. They want to play well. Sometimes you can overtry, if that makes sense. And to me, that gets back into your mojo. That gets back into our swagger a little bit. And I want to try to recreate that with the guys because I know what we're capable of. And if we can get that clicking to go along with what we're doing defensively and special teams wise, that would be a huge bonus.
Yeah. No, he's right. They kind of lost some of that mojo. It's happened in the last 3 weeks. I don't think it's a coincidence, or 3 games, I should say. I don't think it's a coincidence that it's happening against defensive coaches. With Clark Lee being a defensive-minded head coach, Brent Venables, of course, defensive-minded, and Kirby Smart. I think that has something to do with it too. So we'll see now going up against Billy Napier if that shifts the mojo a little bit back in Texas' favor. I agree with Patrick. Maybe some of the injuries, not having Isaiah Bond and that speed element, maybe that also has affected the offense. Here's Sark when he was asked about the loss of what he calls the offensive mojo for Texas.
I don't know if it's loss of confidence. I think sometimes it's like anything. If you're a home run hitter, if you're a really good 3-point shooter, when you see a couple go in or you hit a couple out of the park, I think you gain the confidence. But when you don't hit a couple or you miss a couple threes, I don't know necessarily that those guys, those types of players, lose confidence. They just need to see one go in. They need to see one fly out of the park. And, for us offensively, I think if we can find a little of that mojo, whatever that is in a football vernacular, I think it's going to spark our confidence and really kick us into high gear. So I don't necessarily feel like we've lost it. I think our guys are working hard. They know they're good. They just want to see one go in the bucket. They want to see one fly out of the park to really get going again.
All right. I like that. Confidence is key, as we all know. And do they have enough confidence in the running game? That's also something I'm sure they worked on during the bye week, and that's a lot on the offensive line. That mojo that Sark may be talking about. Here's Sark when he was asked about, is the run game, adequate enough is it up to the task of being able to balance out the offense when needed?
Yeah, no, I feel good about where we're at. We've been a work in progress. You don't go into a season with goals in mind of how you envision something to go. And that's part of it as a coaching staff and as a team. You have to adjust and be willing to adjust. And then we got nicked up. It just was what it was, with Jaden missing a game, with Trey getting banged up, with Jarek stepping in. And so the key for us is continuing to grow in a positive direction. And I think that they're doing that. I think we're gaining more confidence in the run game. But again, we have a lot of strength in throwing the ball too, and so I don't ever want to feel like we just need to force feed the run game because that might be detrimental to us as a team when we're pretty effective throwing the ball too. So we're just continuing to strive for that balance. But again, we got a ton of confidence in all parties involved that we can be a very good run team the second half of the season.
All right, let's start talking about the run game. Something that's affecting the run game and the pass game is affecting the offensive efficiency overall is the penalties. Self-inflicted wounds. Texas had way too many of those in the last 2 games as well. Sark was asked about how do they remedy the issue of the self-inflicted wounds from the penalties. Here's what Steve Sarkisian had to say.
Yeah, it was 2 weeks in a row. I think there was 18 penalties our last 2 ball games. Some of which, we really try to minimize the pre-snap stuff, the stuff, the lining up offsides, the jumping offsides, and then trying to look at our fundamentals and techniques on some of the things that happen in play. And I think we've addressed those things pretty well about, hand placement from the offensive line perspective, in the secondary, getting our head around when we're in phase on the deep ball. We've been really good, as aggressive as we've been of getting after the quarterback. We've been good about not targeting people and doing those types of things. So we just got to get back to our fundamentals, our beliefs and how we go about our business. And I think we'll be okay.
All right. There's Steve Sarkisian talking about some of the things they worked on during the bye week. Listen, I guarantee you, if they did not work on pass protection, that's going to be tested. Penalties, I'm not sure they're at home. That's more of a friendly confines. I'm not sure Florida, and Florida, I would say Florida has the athletes though, that if Texas is out of position, holding, things of that nature, that they can exploit Texas. But I think mostly I'm going to be watching from the offensive line. Can they get a push in the running game and against Florida? Because Florida's got good athletes. Sark will talk about that. We'll play that audio later. And can they hold up in pass protection? Because Florida's going to come after Quinn. They have no choice. They have to. And they'd be foolish not to, considering what we watched the last 2 weeks versus Georgia and Vanderbilt. Texas struggled with certain concepts like the slot corner blitz, boundary corner blitz, the A-gap blitz, the delayed blitz or delayed rushers and pass pressure packages. Those are things I guarantee you Florida's going to throw at Texas. If they have not remedied those issues in the bye week, they're not going to lose to Florida as a result of that, but it could make that game a whole lot closer than it needs to be. I think Texas right now 21-point favorite in that game. Texas should cover that number, and they should start pulling away from them early, considering they won't have, I don't think, DJ Lagway, even though he hasn't been officially ruled out of the game.
No, I think the penalties and the protection are both things that in a bye week where you may be trying to give a couple guys who are nicked up a little bit more rest, you can do some of that in the film room and trying to re-show them and go, what protection are you running right here? What do you see right here? What do you see on this play? What do you see on this play? How are you looking at this? Why are we not catching the DB blitzes? Why are we not catching when they're running these twisted stunts? Why are we not catching that? What are you seeing, and what do we need to fix for you to see this correctly? And then what do you see where you think your hands are on this play? And this is what they're calling for holding in the SEC. So watch out for these things. You don't need to follow things to the ground. Sometimes if a guy's falling over, let him fall over. You can't. If your hands are on him when he falls over, the flag's coming. Whether it's your fault or not, the flag's coming.
Yeah, so you can't dominate somebody like that. So they're putting the flag. They assume you cheated. Ask Gunnar Helm. It's going to assume that was not somehow, the only reason you would bring him to the ground is because you must have had your hands in the wrong place. You must have been holding. No, I'm with you. I think that is some stuff that they can visually help the guys improve on. But yeah, pass protection is probably my number one. That'll be that number one thing I'm looking for. Number one factor, I think, in whether I'm judging improvement from the bye week to the next week is how the offensive line looks in pass protection and how they look run blocking. And then I'm with you, the penalties. And honestly, most of those penalties are on the line. I mean, it's just the reality of it. So all of this really, my focus will be on the O-line during the Florida game. That's it. That's my focus. I think we got the bounce back performance we wanted from Quinn. I think he'll continue to improve. The O-line has to take a step against Florida. And if they don't, then maybe we might have, if they have issues in pass protection versus Florida and they can't get the run game sparked versus Florida, who has, I think, the 88th ranked rush defense in the country, then, maybe the O-line is having a down year and not just a couple of bad games.
Yeah, something happened along the way because they were started out great. And then
they were great. Yeah.
And it's just,
if they can't figure out those same issues, though, then maybe that's what's going on. Teams have figured out, they can't stop these concepts.
Exactly. And once they got into SEC play, they started to have more issues when you played bigger bodies, when you play against, which, I mean, they just haven't done. I mean, even though you can say this offensive line's been together, they haven't played big bodies as much because the Big 12 wasn't about big bodies.
Nope.
So, that's kind of a learning curve that I'm sure they're on, but you want to see them progress in that learning curve as veterans, not as, freshmen and sophomores that you would expect to take a little bit longer to figure out how to make that switch. I get now guys that I could easily double team because I was just way bigger than them. Now I can't double. So we have to make sure those protections, I'm not in my head saying, I'll grab my guy and the blitzer. And then I grab my guy and the blitzer runs right past me.
Yep.
So just those kind of concepts you just got to get through. But again, I say in the bye week, you can work through a little bit of that a little bit more. And then as you get into this week, go put it back out on the field and try and get everything you learned in the bye week to be shown on the field right now.
Yeah. All right. We'll talk more Texas football, obviously, throughout the show. I want to give Patrick the floor next hour. We'll talk a lot of Texas basketball, kind of break down what he saw versus Ohio, what he saw in that game for Texas versus Ohio State in their loss. But Trey Johnson, I mean, you say he's going to be good, and I don't know if you thought he was going to be this good. End up setting a true freshman record for scoring in their debut. Ended up breaking the record set by KD and broke it by 9 points too. I think KD scored 20. Yeah, he scored 29. What's his game? Like, what's his skill set? Give me the scouting report on Trey Johnson.
So we saw the shot, of course. We saw that he can shoot the ball. He's not afraid of shooting the ball.
No, he's got the green light, it seems like.
So we saw that. We know that he understands. There was a couple plays where he showed off his handles and where he was trying to get to the rim. Now, if they're able to work those out where they're able to spread the court a little bit more, you could tell basically Ohio State just stayed at home and really tried to not allow guys to get to the bucket for most of that game. So everyone was having to do little pull-ups as opposed to finishing at the rim. If he can, continue to get a little bit better at finishing at the rim, going through, and just, if you got to create contact, get those big guys out of there, make them have to step back, make them push their ways out, and put another guy in because you're going to get them in foul trouble. And if you're Trey Johnson and you have games like this, you can get them in more and more. You'll get respect from the refs if you keep playing like this. So you saw all of that. Offensively, you just saw everything he was able to do. He did pass the ball around some too, got 4 assists in the game. So he was finding guys. He had a really, really good assist in that game too, on a drive where because of his shooting, he was able to pull the defense out to the 3-point line and then basically froze the defense as he looked like he was about to shoot. And then he just saw Kaluma cut into the basket and fed it right to him on a drive to the bucket. So that kind of vision that you can see in the court to, not take the contested 3 with 2 guys on you, find your open player, that kind of thing. That's vision. Offensively, everything was there. What was really surprising was you saw his defensive effort as well. He played well with quick hands. He's not going to be a all-time great defender, but if he's got that effort out there and can go out there and play with that effort on defense, that is going to be huge for Texas going forward. He was getting pumped up, getting the team pumped up for defensive stops when he was getting them. You want to see that. You want to see a young guy care about defense, and that's something Rodney Terry has preached about. What he's been trying to get him to do is, I know you're great at offense. We don't have to worry about that. But we need you to care about defense the way you care about offense. This team will be good. And so he was playing on both ends of the court. He was able to shoot 50%, play defense, get rebounds, and he played 38 minutes and 43 seconds.
That's crazy,
that
man.
is the craziest stat of the game for me for Trey Johnson.
Freshman.
A true freshman. And his first collegiate game ever played basically all but a minute and 17 seconds.
And it just filled up the stat sheet.
He played more than anyone else in the game, both teams.
Wow.
That and was still hitting shots. It was still playing at the end. I mean, like that, guys get worn down, and I get during the length of the season is going to be a run on him. That is something you really have to work on as you go.
Watch, yeah.
Like you got to make sure that you don't run him out too early because he's going. Yeah, the wear and tear of the season gets to you, especially when you start to add in schoolwork and everything else. That'll just get to you as you start to get into conference play. So you have to worry about that a little bit, but I think you can manage it as you start to go into these games. Like they're playing Houston Christian. He doesn't need to play 38 minutes against Houston Christian. So you should be able to win these games a little bit easier in the non-conference. But some of these big games, that stat to me that he played almost 39 minutes of a basketball game playing both ends of the court.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he had a little scare there where he got picked on a screen. That kind of stuff, he'll get worked. You know, he'll figure out how to get through. And again, as he gets more respect in the game, he'll be able to know that play, that when you get set on one of those screens that's really an illegal screen, but you can kind of get away with, if the offensive player doesn't know, or the defensive player doesn't know how to sell it. But, you know, he kind of got caught in between two guys there. You know, he'll learn how to get through those a little bit better, or, you know, at least get bumped enough off screens that the ref may blow the whistle for it. Because they love calling moving screens in college. So, you know, you can get those calls. But overall, the effort he was able to put in on both ends of the court, he shot 50%. You know, he took some bad threes in that game, but he still shot 50% from three.
From three, yeah.
And if you say, you know, maybe some of those you don't take, but at the same point, if he's hitting shots, if he's shooting 50%, it's hard to really, you don't want to put the red line on him because he's going to miss. That means he's going to start questioning shots he should take. And then when he's feeling it, he's still going to take those ones. So you want to see him get a little bit better about finishing at the rim. I know there's big guys in the middle. That's something that every player doesn't want to do, especially early in the season, especially early in the first half. You don't want to go and take a hit and be on the floor. But finishing those drives where he gets into coverage, or having your other players be ready. And Ohio State was really good at that in the second half, getting the ball and getting an assist on those when you draw the defense. I think as he gets more and more respect, that'll be easier as well, of guys collapsing on him and him finding other plays with his vision. But very much as advertised for Trey Johnson in that game.
I mean, are we talking about the best true freshman Texas had since KD? Is he?
I mean, we're one game in, so we can't say that.
I know, but I'm just saying he's got that kind of potential.
After one game.
Yes. He got that kind of yes. No, but yes.
Look, we can't say that, but I'll say after one game, this is the best true freshman they've had after one game. But yeah, we'll see as the season goes on.
Yes,
we'll see as the defense shift to really focus on him more and more.
Yeah,
because that is going to be, as you get teams that are going to focus more and more, you'll have better defenders that are elite defenders in the SEC that are going to give him a lot of trouble and get up into him. And can he play in a physical league where guys are going to get into him more? Those are, we still have to see all that. Can he play an entire season and stay on the court and stay, with a good shot percentage? Yeah. Those are questions you just won't know until time. But when you see a start like that, and you can say, okay, as advertised, that was the guy.
Yeah, no, that was special. It really was. Like there's no doubt about it. All right, that's going to be a fun journey to kind of watch his ascent with the Texas basketball team this season. All right, good breakdown there. We'll talk more Texas basketball on the other side. But coming up next, we have the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the Day, and we'll introduce the musically themed day of the week. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the horn.
Back on the Rodcast here on a Tuesday, and that means it's a top of the charts Tuesday here on the show, where I'll play you number one songs this day in history. Let's get to the Big Fat Poll of the Day. Text lines open 512-447-3776 is the text line number, and we'll get this posted up on X at the Horn ATX.
Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the Day on the Horn.
Big Fat Poll of the Day today. We've talked a little bit about the Longhorns versus Florida. Let's go over to a part of the game that Tech's been really good at this season, but Florida's been pretty good on their side as well, especially recently. We'll ask you, how many rushing yards will Florida have against Texas? How many rushing yards will Florida have against Texas? To let you know, they had 156 against Georgia. Now, I did take off some of the negative sack yards on that. They had 41 negative yards on sacks. So I took those off of your total. So technically they had like 114 or something like that, about 115, but they had 156 of actually from their running backs is what we'll go with. They had 197 against Kentucky, 138 versus Tennessee, 226 against Mississippi State. So this run game has been going a little bit. Now you take away DJ Lagway, who was a guy who could run. Graham Mertz even ran a little bit. So those numbers are a little bit different with a quarterback who is probably going to be less of a running threat. But this is a running team that still has been able to run the ball. You remember for Texas, Vernon Broughton will miss the first half of this game due to the targeting against Vanderbilt. So there will be a play of, you have a little bit of a different rotation in that first half on the defensive line. Florida with a quarterback who is extremely unproven, even if they decide to make a change or go with whoever they're going to go at quarterback, they will be extremely unproven. There's no one on that roster at this point who we know anything about to believe that they're going to be stealing the show. So if you say all of that, they're going to run the ball a lot. They have to run the ball a lot. So we'll ask you, how many rushing yards will Florida have against Texas? I'll give you the options 0 to 75, 75 to 125, 125 to 150, and 150 plus.
I don't know if they're going to be able to run the ball that well. Listen, I think they have good backs. I actually I think the backs, as in Montrell Johnson is one of the backs they have, who's a good player. I don't know how available he's going to be. I got to check the injury report when it comes out, but they're going to be so one-dimensional. They're going to that's the thing. I don't know if they're going to be able to threaten Texas with a vertical passing game enough to get guys out of the box to free up enough space to run the rock. When you have a DJ Lagway in there, you have to respect his ability to threaten you vertically with that cannon he's got, because he may not be accurate, but he can throw it 40, 50 yards on you. And he is a threat as a runner. So when he decides we're going to run, zone read or read option, you got to respect that too and play assignment football. Even with Graham Mertz, he can be accurate. He's a functional mobility, but he's accurate with his short intermediate passing game down the field. So you still can't just stuff the box. He can work the RPO game, the play action pass game. With this young man, I'm not sure if they have that option because he's just not. He's not going to throw the football down past 10 yards a lot.
No,
I would say, very, very little, if any, passes vertically down the field. And that's going to hurt their ability to run the rock too, is my point.
No, and that's it. So that kind of goes into the point. Are you going to be able to hold this team to 150 yards of total offense? If you figure most of the yards are probably going to be coming via the run game, this pass game doesn't feel like it's going to be super effective. Now, maybe they'll have some stuff that Texas doesn't know and get a big play and get some yards.
Flickers and stuff in there, I'm sure. But
this is, it really feels like if you're going to try and put the ball in the hands of anybody you trust, you're going to run the ball, especially early. Now, Texas, if you say they get out to a 20-something point lead, Florida at a certain point may just have to start throwing the ball, even though it doesn't work. We saw that against Michigan at a point where Davis Warren just started to have to throw it downfield because that was the only shot they had. So we may see that end up for them, and it'll knock down their 12s. I just want to see. So if you guys think that you'll hold Florida to probably the least amount they've had this season, or if it'll be somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, they've had injuries in the backfield too, because Montrell Johnson hasn't played in a couple of weeks. I don't know if he'll be available, but he was their lead back to start the season. And then Jaden Baugh and Jacoby Jackson have been the guys who've picked up the slack since his injury. And those are the guys who have been sharing the load of the running game for the last couple of weeks without Montrell Johnson. But those guys are good players. Jacoby Jackson's averaging over 5.7 yards per rush. Hell, Montrell Johnson is over 5 yards per rush too when he plays. And Jaden Baugh is at 4.6. So those guys can, and neither one of them are really used that much in the passing game. Montrell Johnson has 13 receptions. They're primarily the guys they use in the run game, but I imagine their workload versus Texas will increase substantially just because of the injury to DJ Lagway. I mean, DJ Lagway was fourth on the team in rush attempts. And they used him in quarterback design runs. So that also changes the run game a little bit. But I'm going to say because they run it so much, they actually may get to 100. They may get to like 150, but I don't think their yards per rush.
Oh, I don't
They're gonna be
either.
very high.
I don't either.
I think they're gonna be at like less than 4, around 4 yards or less per rush.
No.
I think that's what's gonna happen to them. They're not gonna have much effectiveness, but that's gonna be their only way to move the football without putting their quarterback in harm's way because it's third string quarterback. And what the hell do you do if something happens to him?
No, I know. And I mean, and this is
what?
also somewhat a question of the offense. Does Quinn Ewers get that offense going? They find their mojo, we talked about. Did they find their mojo? And they put up, and it's 28-3 after the going into the middle of the second quarter. Well, that changes a lot of things where Florida has to, they're still going to run, but I mean, what do you start doing? But if it's, 14-6 going into halftime,
Yeah.
they're going to run the ball a lot in the second half.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree with that. I mean, that trust me, it'll look more like Michigan when Michigan was forced to throw the football against Texas, but they'll make some plays maybe, but they'll be more like Hail Mary type plays. That's what Michigan made. Remember how many of those plays where he just kind of threw it up on third longs and his guys made plays, Colston Loveland, and you'll give him credit for he extended the play, was able to run, move around. I'm not sure how much this young man, Aiden Warner, can move around. I have to go back and watch the film and see if they can move the pocket with him a little bit, but they're going to be, I mean, they're going to be in some difficult situations versus Texas defense, period. I just don't see how they're going to move the football effectively, consistently against the Texas defense because they're going to be one-dimensional and then they can't throw the football vertically down the field. So we'll see. And I agree with Patrick. It depends on how quickly you can force them to have to abandon their game plan offensively. You get up 3 touchdowns early on in this game. That could really change the entire complexion, the desperation element for Florida. All right, there you go. So, topic for the big fat poll today: how many rushing yards does Florida get versus that Texas defense? We'll discuss that on the other side. We'll hear from Steve Sarkisian, as a matter of fact, as well. We'll also get into Raj Rant coming up on the other side, and we'll talk some Texas basketball as well. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis and Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a top of the charts Tuesday. That's when Patrick plays jams that reached the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. So we appreciate him hooking us up there. He also hooks us up with the topic for the big fat poll of the day, which will get posted to the X account at the Horn ATX for you. But Patrick, give the folks out there the topic for the big fat poll of the day.
Big fat poll of the day. How many rushing yards will Florida have against Texas? We gave you 0 to 75, 75 to 125, 125 to 150, and 150 plus.
Yeah, actually, I think they'll get 150 plus. I just think they'll run it so much. I think their yards per rush will be, 4 yards per rush or lower, somewhere around there. Maybe a little bit higher than 4 yards per rush, something around there, just because they'll run it a lot. But it'll be largely irrelevant and ineffective. It won't matter that much. I think they'll do it because they know not only are they limited, but they're just trying to keep the football and limit possessions for Texas, especially with a third. And it's mostly because they have a third string starting quarterback in there. I mean, he's a walk-on transfer from Yale, and I've watched a little bit. I did watch him. He's gonna struggle against this Texas defense because Texas defense it's fast and they can play sticky coverage, and I'm not sure Florida has or will have their main weapons in terms of skill positions available. Montrell Johnson hadn't played in a couple of weeks. He was their marquee running back to start the season. Eugene Wilson is probably the best wide receiver or the most dangerous wide receiver for Florida. He actually wasn't available for him last week. So we'll see if he ends up playing with them this week. Maybe he is, but he's a dangerous guy they got to worry about. But, they've had a lot of injuries. And even if they do have skill position guys that are available, I don't know if they're going to be able to get the football to them.
Yeah.
That's the reality. So that's why the line is 21. I haven't looked at it today. It's probably rising actually in Texas' favor. I haven't looked at it. They have not confirmed whether DJ Lagway will be available. They said he's not ruled out of the game. But
man, how often do you see a guy get carted out and then not ruled out the next week?
And it says a hamstring injury. And I'm like, hamstrings, first of all, you don't get carted off for hamstring injuries unless they're severe. Unless they're like, you can't walk.
Yeah.
Usually guys can kind of limp their way off with the hamstring injury. He did not limp off. No, they had to cart him off. Remember, all the guys came out to the field too. I mean, it looked like, I thought it was worse than a hamstring. When I heard hamstring, I was like, oh, good. I was like, but he did get carted off, and that makes me think he may have torn it.
What was who is the pitcher? There was a pitcher for the Astros who I think last season had a thing where he went to go to first base to throw the ball, and just his leg went out on him, and he hit the ground, and he just laid there on his face for 5 minutes, and then they came out and they stretched him out. And then the next day they were like, it's like an ankle sprain, something like that. It was something so minor. And he was like, I heard a pop, and I heard it was like, it was
just laid there too. It was like,
it was a thing where it was like, oh man,
crowd
maybe
all
career
quiet.
ending, and then it was like he was back in 2 weeks.
Everybody was crying, people praying in the crowd.
I was like, how embarrassing is that? You get carted out, everyone's patting on your head, like, you're gonna be okay, buddy.
You're gonna be okay, man.
You go to the doctor, and he's like, dude.
It's an ankle sprain, right? Just ankle sprain.
I mean,
put a sleeve on that.
Yeah.
You'll be okay.
Here's a bag of ice.
No, I guess in the moment though, it's pretty dramatic. But you're right. That's why, I'm not making light of his injury, but I don't know if he's going to be available because I think it's a severe hamstring injury, like Dak's thing. Actually, we haven't talked about it, but. They say Dak's injury is a lot more serious than they anticipated. I believe the report from Tom Pelissero says Dak Prescott's hamstring injury was worse than initially feared. He is expected to miss multiple weeks. Sources tell me and Tom Pelissero. This is Ian Rappaport as well, actually. So he said, in fact, this is not looking like a short-term injury for Dak. So, and I think the same thing about DJ Lagway. I don't think it's a short-term hamstring thing. I don't think it's a couple of weeks and then they'll be back. I think you're talking about a month or so just to, make sure it heals in a month or at the end of the season. if you're DJ Lagway at that point. So we'll see. But I think ultimately the run game is all Florida will have against Texas. I like their running backs, though. If Montrell Johnson available, I think they do have a nice collection of running backs, one of the better collection of running backs Texas has seen so far this season. They haven't really seen a really good collection of backs. Travis Etienne did a good job against Texas because that's an NFL back. It's an NFL running back. Hard to bring that guy down at the second level. He's able to break tackles, make guys missing one-on-ones, got great vision. I mean, he set Texas up a couple of times on some of those runs, and Texas defense hadn't been set up like that. Y'all saw it like, oh, that's different. So I think that's something that in this game that may be something to watch, but I don't think Florida will have enough balance in the offense to really be a threat to Texas defensively. So, all right. Matter of fact, going back to Dak, we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll get into some NFL news, notes, and nuggets on the show. I do want to get into the Texas basketball game. We'll talk about Texas losing to Ohio State. I'll give Patrick the floor a little bit, and we'll talk some of the things that we saw. We talked about the extraordinary, spectacular performance from Trey Johnson. So I don't want to start off on a negative note, but now we can actually talk about
there's some good, there's some bad in the game.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to talk about the good first because they didn't lose the game, but you still got to be excited about what you saw from the true freshman Trey Johnson if you're a Texas basketball fan. But now I want to get into some of the things that I didn't like about that performance from Texas basketball. So we'll talk about that. We'll get back to the Monday Night Football game last night. It looks like the Chiefs and their right now their quest to three-peat. It looks more real than ever. Actually, that three-peat for the Chiefs seems like it will be the storybook ending. Because right now, I don't know if anybody can stop what's going on with the Chiefs, and they're getting better. I'll give you those numbers too. Since the DeAndre Hopkins acquisition, that Kansas City Chiefs team, even though they're undefeated, looks like they're getting better, especially on the offensive side of the ball. We'll talk about that a little bit. Before we do any of that, let's get into the Horn headlines. So let's get updated. Let's get educated. Breaking news, actually.
Oh, yes, there is some breaking news.
We knew this was going to happen. See? Said it was going to happen. Said it earlier this week. I said the rumors are, because I still keep up with my Lions actually back in the day. So I still stay on some of those sites. The Lions are acquiring the defensive end Zadarius Smith from the Browns.
Yeah, not even giving out much for him. Now. It's Zadarius Smith and a 7th rounder going to Detroit for a 2025 5th and a 2026 6th. So not much to give up to get Zadarius Smith. 5 sacks already this season for Smith. But yeah, bring in another player there to help out on that pass rush for the Lions. It is, by the way, it is the trade deadline today.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't talk about that. It's a lot going on today, Patrick. A lot.
Is there some
burying the lead.
Is there anything big?
The trade deadline. Yeah, the trade deadline,
right? No, there's no NBA games for some reason. I can't
yeah, we're not gonna get into it, but yes, there's a lot of things happening today. Big things happening today. But yes, that is actually a great point, Patrick. We hadn't brought it up, but it is the trade deadline today. So you may see you should see some other teams making some moves, especially some right now. Teams have already decided whether they're buy or sell. Honestly, we just talked about the Dallas Cowboys. Now, based on the report that the hamstring injury is indeed more severe than we anticipated, should the Cowboys be selling? Cowboys should be selling.
Hey, they got till 3 p.m. today. 3 p.m. today. And then after 3 p.m., we can all relax. Nothing else important's happening, I'm sure.
Seriously. No, great point there. All right. We'll get into that. Actually, I'm gonna do some research. I might gotta get to this breaking news and we'll talk about that. So I'll do some research about that trade that just went down. We'll also get back to some other NFL news, notes, and nuggets, and we'll talk Texas basketball as well. But first, let's get updated, let's get educated, let's get informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the NBA, the Spurs lost their game with the Clippers 113-104 after a hot start. Victor Wembanyama had 24 points, 13 rebounds, and 9 blocks in the game. But the Spurs were outscored by 13 in the fourth quarter after squandering a 26-point first quarter lead. Greg Popovich missed his second game due to an illness, but is said to be resting at home, hoping to rejoin the team soon. The Rockets got a big 109-97 win over the Knicks with Alperen Sengun putting up 25 points and 14 rebounds. And the Mavericks dropped one to the Pacers, 134-127, in an offensive battle with 11 players scoring in double figures for the two teams. There are no NBA games today for Election Day. In the NFL, the Chiefs stayed undefeated in a 30-24 overtime win with the Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield led a late touchdown drive to tie the game, but the Chiefs won the coin toss in overtime and scored on a Kareem Hunt touchdown to win the game. DeAndre Hopkins had his biggest game for the Chiefs with 8 catches and 86 yards and two touchdowns. And in college basketball, number 6 Gonzaga made a statement on opening night with a 101-63 win over the Baylor Bears, while projected number 1 overall pick Cooper Flagg impressed in his debut with 18 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists in a Duke win over Maine. Texas lost their opener to Ohio State 80-72 in the Hall of Fame series in Las Vegas. Trey Johnson set a new record for freshman scoring in a debut game with 29 points while adding 5 rebounds and 4 assists, but hot shooting from Ohio State proved too much. Texas will look to get in the win column on Friday against Houston Christian at the Moody Center.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. Appreciate those. We'll get back to the headlines that obviously just broke, that the Detroit Lions have acquired, or at least are acquiring, Zadarius Smith, the edge rusher from the Browns. We'll get back to that story. As a matter of fact, when we go into Rod's rant, we'll make it a kind of maybe an NFL smorgasbord, talk a little Cowboys, talk a little Texans, talk some trade deadline there as well, and the game from last night. So we'll do that. But I want to hit this Texas basketball game for a second. The Longhorns come up short. But we talked about the good, and the good was Trey Johnson. I mean, he was just spectacular. Maybe it was the greatest freshman debut, true freshman debut in the history of Texas basketball, basically, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, because Kevin Durant's up there, but yeah, to have
that's.
I mean, yeah, to have the game he had.
That's not hyperbole. That's
he had a really good game, and you're playing against a real team in Ohio State. So it wasn't, a kind of a throwaway game that some of these guys have early on. I mean, every team does in college basketball, but they just happen to start off against Ohio State this year. And so to go up against a team that does have some good defenders and, has a little bit more pedigree, that was a big game for Trey Johnson.
Let's talk about some of the bad from the game.
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you one thing I didn't like, and I'll kind of give you the floor on this. They still had scoring droughts.
Oh, no, the scoring was a huge issue. Issue. That's like the issue. I know people
like 5-minute scoring droughts.
People are upset that Ohio State scored 80 points. You will score 80 points if the other team can't hit a shot. You just will, because you get to come back on defense, and the other team is going to be set on their heels. The other team wasn't going to be in right. Like the amount of times Caden Shedrick ended up on the guard on the top, and then they had to rotate from there. It just, you can't get in the right sets because everyone's running back after you miss shots. You got to hit shots, or else defense just becomes hard. They did that, especially early in the game. And then Ohio State just went lights out for threes for that beginning of the first half.
Hot.
So there was some things in that. The defense wasn't really a huge issue. There's some things they need to clean up on it. They need to get a little bit better. Caden Shedrick and Arthur Kaluma both only had 1 defensive rebound. So that is something you need to clean up, that those two guys were coming over to help on the defense, and then they weren't able to get back. And those guys working together need to get a little bit better about picking up defensive rebounds. But the defense really wasn't as big of an issue, because if you put that back in, plus we can also say Tremont Mark was not playing. He has a right ankle injury, so he was out of the game. That is probably your best defender.
Okay.
And so he was not able to play in the game. You add him in, that gives you another benefit. He's also supposed to be your second best player as well, and second best scorer. So there was some issues that leaving him out didn't help as well. But really, this was the scoring droughts, the offense, that there's a couple big red flags that you saw early. Caden Shedrick still having trouble. I wasn't thrilled about how far he was catching the ball out of the post. You want to see him try and get a little bit better. So when he's trying to play inside out and they're trying to feed him the ball, there's too many times he's catching about 15 or so feet away from the basket. And if you do that, you got to be a spot up shooter, or they don't really have to come out on you as much. And I know he wants a little room to drive, but it wasn't really working. So if you want to get inside, he has some good post moves. Try and get closer inside that 10 feet. If you can get inside the 10 feet, you have a little bit more room to work where you can get inside and get really close shots. It makes the other guys come over and help, where you can kick the ball over and try and find somebody else. So wasn't thrilled about that. They can work on that. Kendall Weaver also just wasn't able to finish around the rim. He needs to get better at that. Ohio State just stayed at home under the basket for a lot of the game defensively. So, I think Texas has guys that want to attack the rim, and they just weren't able to. They weren't finishing those shots. You got to go in hard. In the second half, they got to the free throw line more, which you need to see. If they're gonna stick a 7-footer under the basket, you got to go at him. You want to try and hesitate a little bit, get him to step out on you. If you get him to step out, arms will fall down some too. You got to go after those guys, get him in foul trouble, and especially if Kendall Weaver. You're a hustle guy. He's a really good player defensively.
Yeah.
But if you're a hustle guy, you're going to be on the floor some. So that's the one. Go get him in foul trouble. He did better at that in the second half as well. But those two, the biggest red flag you saw was Jordan Pope could not step up to the moment in that game. And that was really the biggest worry you had after that game. And it's one game. It may have been nerves. It may have been plenty of other things of why he wasn't effective. But he played less minutes than Julian Larry, which you didn't really want to see. He was a defensive liability at points. He only played under 23 minutes. He was 2 for 8 from the field, 1 for 6 from 3. That's just not going to cut it for a guy who is supposed to be one of your better scorers. This is a guy who was averaging well last year. He was playing really well for Oregon State. He's supposed to be an electric scorer, and he was. But we talked about the level of competition and level of the team, and it just felt like he never got that groove. He didn't feel confident with the ball. At no point when he had it did you really feel – a couple times he threw up threes, trying to get feeling it, but they weren't really good plays to get open. They were more just desperation. If I can get going, he watched some of the other guys like Mobley on the other side just jacking up threes and hitting them. Go, I can do that. Like you can, but you're not feeling it right now, so you got to try and get an easier shot, get in that mid-range, get to the basket. He just really never got it going. That one was probably your scariest moment. If Jordan Pope is somebody that is going to be very on and off, and he's going to be someone inconsistent, that is a little bit worrying, but it's one game, so I'm not going to panic too far on one game.
Yeah.
But that was somebody that was definitely something that.
So you're saying like there's been multiple reasons for the scoring droughts that we witnessed.
Yeah,
didn't have a consistent second scorer other than Trey Johnson.
No, I think that offense is going to be
3-point shooting.
There's issues with Tremel Mark being out with injuries. They've had some other small bang up injuries throughout the offseason. So I don't know how much these guys have really played together a ton.
Yeah.
So you would see at times where guys would just go play one-on-one basketball and the ball wouldn't move. And once they got the ball to move from one side of the court to the other, they were playing a lot better. They didn't have too many turnovers. They had 9. It's a little bit more than you wanted. Kaluma had 3 of those, though. So, it wasn't terrible what they did. They had more points off of turnovers. They had more second chance points. They had more points in the paint. Like they really did well in a lot of categories, but too many times they weren't able to go. And 7 for 28 from 3.
It's brutal.
You got to shoot better from 3 because if you don't, then they don't have to move out of that paint. They don't really have to get up on top of you. And other than Trey Johnson, nobody shot well from 3-point range. Caden Shedrick, 0 for 2, did not look good doing it. Arthur Kaluma can shoot a little bit, but he was 0 for 2 in the game. Jordan Pope, 1 for 6. Kendall Weaver, 0 for 2. Julian Larry, 1 for 3. Jason Kent, 0 for 3. Like that is just
18 for the rest of the team. That's crazy.
Yeah.
From 3.
So it's like that you have to fix. You have to be able to hit some shots. I don't know if it was because of Vegas that Terry didn't have him in the gym enough in that gym. I don't know if the timing was wrong. I don't know if it was because it was the back-to-back of a doubleheader, so it threw off your pregame ritual. I don't know what it was, but you have to understand you're going to have those games throughout the year where you don't get to do that. When you get to tournament play, that's how it is. So you have to fix those during the season. It's super early. It's super early in the season. So there's no reason to freak out about any of it. I know that there's the Rodney Terry haters who hate me because I don't hate Rodney Terry for whatever reason.
Hate you because you don't hate Rodney Terry.
For whatever reason, they think, he should have been fired halfway through that game and they brought in anybody else and Texas would win a national championship. But I think there was points. You could say Rodney Terry did not have the team as amped up as they should have been. You could say Rodney Terry didn't have the offense as set as it needed to be. But if you're going to complain about the defense, I don't know if the defense was really the biggest issue. They were out on 3-point shooters. They hit some crazy hard threes. They just shot really well. Man. There was some threes that got left open throughout the game. You can get mad that, you got to have some of those guys get down. Again, the Shedrick and Kaluma not getting defensive rebounds. That's kind of, you need to work on them having communication better instead of both going after the same players and letting someone slide in behind them. because if both those guys are not getting defensive rebounds, that's guys sliding in behind them. But they didn't. I mean, they allowed 11 offensive rebounds. They got 16 themselves. It's not, in the second chance points was only 7. So it didn't really kill you. It just looked worse in the game. So none of it really killed you. The threes did. The threes early, they got a lead, and then you were never able to be consistent enough offensively to take that big run and take the lead back and put the pressure back on Ohio State. Without the pressure, it just felt like they were able to kind of play their game. They did what they wanted to do, which was hit threes early and then attack the paint later on. They did that. I mean, I think Texas did well to get them into foul trouble. Texas did a lot of things well, but they just weren't getting their shots to fall. And, you're hoping that was just more of a fluke than what you'll see. I like Jason Kent. I thought Jason Kent played a really good game of intangibles. They got good shots. Yeah. He was 0 for 4. So everything he was doing well. But the shots just weren't falling. And, things like that start to worry you when you have guys like that. You go, man, I'd love to have you on the floor, but you got to hit some of these shots. Kendall Weaver being 3 for 10, Shedrick 4 for 12. Man, you're playing well, but I got to have you hit some of those shots, or else we got to try and find somebody else to put in there. Kaluma, as much as he was not great at certain moments, he was also really good at certain moments. And so that inconsistency we saw just in one game, the 3 turnovers, but he was also 4 for 7. He also had some big rebounds, offensive rebounds. So there's points where he kind of went back and forth. But yeah, right now, I think if you want to look at the 2 numbers that are to me the most alarming, and one's positive, one's really positive, and one's really negative, is that Jordan Pope only played 22 and a half minutes. That's alarming because this guy's supposed to be a guy that was a major part of making this offense run, right? And he ended up more like Tyrese Hunter, where last year we know you could not count on him to be a scorer for you at times. And that you don't want to have that again. So that was your one issue. Another part is you thought Texas was going to have 2 real good point guards that you could run, which is very rare to have in today's game. With him, Julian Larry looked good in what he was doing. And then the other number we said earlier, the fact that Trey Johnson played almost 39 minutes that game still blows my mind. It is the craziest stat to have a true freshman play that many minutes in an opening game.
Efficient, though.
Efficient. Like there was no reason to pull him. And part of that, too, is if you have Tremont Mark, that changes that rotation. That takes away some of those minutes. So he got a lot of Mark's minutes. Once you put him back in the rotation, that knocks some of those minutes down as well. So there's reasons why he played as many minutes as he did in this game. It won't be a consistent thing. But the fact he did it and had the legs to do it, that was really amazing for his numbers. But yeah, I mean, overall, you looked at it and said, okay, you hit a couple more shots, you win that game. If you have Tremont Mark, you win that game. You should have been able to win it anyway.
One less drought, you win that game.
Yeah, and so I agree. You want to win the game. You should have won the game. But as someone who watches basketball all the time, if you start freaking out about one loss at the beginning of the season, I mean,
have a heart attack by the end of the season.
It's not a game that you could freak out about every single game. Especially a game like that a game like that where it wasn't really that. There's nothing that bad in it. Like I've watched plenty of basketball games where you walk out and go, man, we do the Dak Prescott. We effing suck. I've seen that. That was not the case in this one. It was just the shooting was bad. And, sometimes that is when you practice in the same gym and, you play a couple scrimmages, but you're kind of used to playing in your own gym. And, sometimes it takes a little bit to get used to going back out and playing on it. And, that it's just going to take a little bit of time. I think they'll get there. If this is continuing into, I believe your next bigger one is going to be Syracuse on the 21st, is your next kind of test of a actual D1 school, Power 4 school. So if we're getting to Syracuse and they're still really shooting poorly and everyone's playing really bad offensively other than Trey, then yeah, we can then start to say they need to figure out some things offensively. But on this one, I'll put it on just nerves of the first game, trying to go out there and trying to find their role in a really new offense that hasn't been able to practice together a ton. And I won't freak out too much about it.
No, not yet.
I'll freak out much more about, wow, Trey Johnson.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with you. The Trey Johnson stuff really balances out. It doesn't feel like you had a loss. I think anything you want to criticize about the performance of the Longhorns, you're almost balanced out by how brilliant the performance of Trey Johnson was. Because I mean, he had two steals and a
Yeah.
block. I mean,
No, and let me throw another one in there. He had one turnover.
he had one turnover in 39 minutes, basically.
Yeah, with the ball in his hand a lot.
A lot.
He took 20
And
shots.
50% from the field.
Those are
How
not.
the
And I
hell?
mean, they were putting on their best defender on him a lot of times. Basically, when Jordan Pope wasn't on the court, they were putting over a better defender on him.
Man, like I said, that's amazing. It really is. That's an amazing performance. Was there a better true freshman performance in the country?
No, I mean, and that's what we gave you, the Cooper flag, which is your number one overall pick, like 99% odds. That he went with 18.7 rebounds and 5 assists in Duke, and they're playing Maine.
That's a damn good.
So
That's
he
a
plays
damn good
less.
line, by the way.
It's a
too.
good line. He's in less minutes as well. I don't know what his minute. I have to go look at what his minutes are, but I can tell you it's less because they played Maine. So, he didn't play 39 and a half minutes. I can tell you that. He didn't play more minutes.
39 minutes. And just like you said, one turnover. That's probably the most remarkable stat, the one turnover for a true freshman.
Yeah.
True
I mean,
freshman.
and Texas only had 9 in the game. That's not a bad, that's part of you didn't have the rotation you need and move the ball movement you needed at points, which might lead to a couple more, but also will get you more points. But at the same part, you weren't playing poorly of the ball wasn't moving around and getting thrown away a bunch either.
Yeah. No, it was like I said, I can't wait to watch more Trey Johnson. I think he's must-watch television for Longhorn fans, not just Longhorn basketball fans, man. You might be talking about one of the best young players in the country. All right, we'll get back to some more Texas conversation because we're going to talk Texas football coming up later on, but we'll get into some NFL news, notes, and nuggets where we get into Rod's rant. We'll talk about the latest news, the headline that Zadarius Smith, the edge rusher from the Browns, is going to be traded to the Detroit Lions. It is also the trade deadline today, so you'll probably get some more movement. We'll get into that. Also, we'll talk about the game last night. Kansas City Chiefs remain undefeated. Dak Prescott's hamstring injury looks like it's going to be a little bit more severe, and like it's going to be a little worse than anticipated for Cowboys fans. And we'll also talk a little Texans. So a little smorgasbord of discussion about the NFL news, notes, and nuggets and headlines coming up next in Rod's Rant right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Mike Tom Longhorn. Rod Beavers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get to some NFL discussion here. Detroit Lions deciding to make a big move, to make a splash before the trade deadline here. We just told you the news. Edge rusher Zadarius Smith being traded from the Browns to the Lions. It's Zadarius Smith and a 2026 7th-round pick going to Detroit for a 2025 5th-round pick and a 2026 6th-round pick. So yeah, I mean, compensation really isn't for the Detroit Lions. That is not, very high for a price to have to pay to get an edge rusher, and you needed one. I mean, losing Aiden Hutchinson was a big loss for them. You really hadn't seen them really feel the effects of it. They haven't really the last couple of weeks. They still been rolling, and they pretty much look like the only juggernaut, if you will, in the NFC. But they fill the hole. This is what good GMs do. Brad Holmes with the Lions, he's one of the better GMs in the league. You see a void, you see a hole on your roster, try to fill it as quick as possible. Zadarius Smith, who's had double-digit sacks, I believe, in 3 of the last 5 years. I think he had one of those years where he was just injured. He's got 5 sacks so far this year, so he's actually on pace to get double-digit sacks again this year. We'll probably end up getting double-digit sacks with the Alliance. So this is a guy that's a natural edge rusher. Like, he's naturally one of the better. Since 2019, he's established himself as one of the better pass rushers in the league. And I mean, said he had 10 sacks. If you go look at a couple of years ago, he had an injury, first of all, which really hampered him. And he had 10 sacks. Last time he had double-digit sacks was 2022. He had 10 sacks. Last year only had 5.5. Was hurt in 2021, missed some time there. And then in 2020 and in 2019 had 13.5 and 12.5 sacks. So you're talking about when he's been available. All right, when he's been available, he's had double-digit sacks in 3 of the last 5 years. And I think he's on the cusp of a double-digit sack year this year. So good move, great move actually by the Detroit Lions. Detroit Lions right now, like I said, we talked about how well Jared Goff is playing right now. There's not a quarterback playing better in the NFC than Jared Goff is playing right now. But Detroit Lions, they look the part. They certainly look the part. I'll give them that. They do look the part right now. I don't see a team right now on the NFC side, and that includes 49ers. If 49ers get healthy, it's a different discussion altogether. But right now, just looking at the NFC, the Detroit Lions are the team to beat. That's weird to say. It doesn't even feel right coming out of my mouth to say that, but the Detroit Lions are the team to beat in the NFC.
They are. Do you want to hear more breaking news?
Oh, yeah. Trade deadline stuff?
Trade deadline stuff.
Give it to me.
The Bears are sending Khalil Herbert to the Bengals for a 7th-round pick.
Oh, okay. Oh, the Bears. I can't figure out what the Bears are like. I guess they got a lot of running backs, though. The Bears
do have a lot of running backs.
They got a lot of running backs. Yeah,
we knew.
They do.
I mean,
and Rojo, I think Rojo now, actually, this is good for Rojo.
Yes. Clears up the room a little bit more.
Yes. I think he's getting more of a role in the running game for the Bears. I believe that's what that means. And I'm not going to try to bring everything back to the Cowboys, but kept saying that there are running backs out there to be acquired, Cowboys. Like,
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, where would you find them? I mean, but the draft capital is probably too much, right?
Oh, what they go from? A
7th.
A 7th. It's like, come on, Cowboys, like that.
Just saying.
And I believe you mentioned the Bears weeks ago. Like, hey, the Bears would be a team potentially.
I don't know, in the offseason.
Yeah, because they had been stockpiling running backs
before training camp when there was no one else to sign. I said, they clearly they have a lot of running backs there, so you should call them.
Give them a call,
yeah,
and see what they might want to give up. And I will say this though, for the Cowboys, we're talking about Cowboys running backs. Rico Dowdle has looked actually pretty good.
He has.
Since they finally decided to, give him the football, he's actually looked pretty good.
No, I don't think Rico Dowdle is not a guy who should be in a rotation with another running back. You should have 2 backs, and you could run the ball. I think you're not going to have a premier back on either one of them. So Khalil Herbert's not a premier back either. But with the 2 of them, I think you have a good mashup there of 2 guys that you can put together and a good rotation of running backs that make you feel pretty okay about your running back room for a 7th-round pick.
No, I don't with you. I don't know
why
they didn't do it.
at this point. I get the injuries and everything else. Why you don't make that trade
Oh,
now?
yeah.
But
now
the Bengals,
now we're past that.
but
point.
the
Yeah,
Bengals still trying to believe that they're in it and making a trade to bring a guy in.
No, you know why the Bengals think? Because Joe Burrow is actually having a good year. I think that's why the Bengals. Well, in that division, though, I wonder if that division is tough. I don't know. Maybe they are out of it in that division. If they were in another division,
Yeah,
I'd probably give them a better chance. That division is
man. And I think they're shooting themselves in the foot with the Joe Mixon trade a little bit. They thought that wasn't going to be as painful as it is, but it seemed to have
a good year.
And he's having a good year, but it feels like that was a very painful loss for them that they're trying to make up for now.
Yeah, you're right about that. That's a good point. I don't know. I don't know where the Bengals are now. I just don't know if where they are in that division being so tough. If they got a shot, I know the Browns are not they're not relevant, but the Pittsburgh Steelers are now kind of on top of that division. And most people believe that, with the Steelers being on top, the Ravens at one point, they're going to surpass the Steelers. But both teams, I think, until the Steelers hit the end of their stretch right now, I mean, those are the two teams that the Bengals are looking up at. So, but Joe Burrow, just real quick, Joe Burrow, he is 5th in passing yards per game. If you go look at QBR, he's 2nd in QBR behind Lamar Jackson. He's tied for 3rd in passer rating. He's actually having a really good year. It's just it's crazy that they could be so bad and he's having such a good year. To me, it kind of points to that Bengals defense. I love Lou Anarumo, but they're not having the season that most people would expect them to have. And I want to say Trey Hendrickson's was having a great year too, or one of their pass rushers.
Yeah, but then he get hurt.
Oh, yeah, you might be right about that.
I think he got hurt.
Kept up with it. Okay, there you go then. But yeah, it's man, if you go, yeah, Trey Hendrickson's got 11 sacks.
11 sacks. Someone on that team.
They got the sack leader too. He's got 11 sacks, guys. Trey Hendrickson's got 11 sacks. Like, how are the Bengals bad? I don't really understand. I got to watch Bengals film. I don't know how they're bad. Oh, and by the way, Jamar Chase, 2nd in receiving yards. What is going on with the Bengals? I'm sorry, they got a top 5 quarterback. They got a top 3 receiver. They got a top 3 pass rusher in the league right now. You're right. They should have kept Joe Mixon. Maybe that's what they need. Maybe it's the running game. I haven't really kept up with the Bengals like that. Anyway, but that's the issue. That's another big trade that's happening. We'll talk about more of those. The Texans are not expected to make a trade, though. I read that in the Chronicle. At cron.com, that's not expected to make a trade before the trade deadline.
No, I wouldn't surprise me if they made a small one, but I think they're not going to give up too much.
Because they believe Nico, when they add Nico back to the mix, that Nico will kind of transform the offense.
I think we're at the point now, too, that this may not be a Nico problem only. This may be a right guard problem. Man, or left guard problem, or whatever left guard, because right guard Shaq Mason. I mean, he's okay, but that left guard problem, Kenyon Green, has been just terrible.
Man, I'll give you a stat that's depressing about the Texans. No QB has been pressured more than CJ Stroud this season, according to the 33rd, which is a website. They said Stroud has faced the 17th most pressures any quarterback has seen in the first 9 weeks of any season since 2000.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nope. This is why you don't draft Aggies.
I like the Aggie joke, but that's still depressing.
Depressing.
The Aggie tears do not. That does not make me feel better. But how about this? And this is not a good stat either. But the Texans have allowed 50 unblocked pressures, according to Pro Football Focus, with guys just coming free, just unblocked. That to me is coaching and communication. Guys coming up, so they've allowed 50 unblocked pressures and so obviously different. There are different entities, different companies. They have different definitions of what a pressure is. So some people may have different numbers about that, but essentially, of your 136 pressures, these numbers are saying 50 of them were unblocked. Guys coming free at CJ Stroud. That's coaching and communication. There's no doubt about that. This guy's not communicating on the O-line about free rushers, and that's coaches not fixing the issues because there obviously have been, systemic issues now on that offensive line for the last 3 weeks for the Texans. So bad news for the Texans, but we talked a lot about that. Talked about that ad nauseum last week. Cowboys. Let's get to the Cowboys here because the report from Ian Rappaport and Tom Pelissero is that Dak Prescott's hamstring injury was worse than initially feared. He's expected to miss multiple weeks. I think we said that yesterday, that there's no way he was going to be coming, back sooner than expected. If anything, you want to be cautious with him, because if you're the Cowboys right now, what are you playing for? But if Dak's going to be out at least 2 weeks, and it seems that will be the case, I think the Cowboys are going to lose those games, the next 2 games they play. And who should the Cowboys play? Should they play Cooper Rush or should they play Trey Lance? I say play Trey Lance.
I mean, I say play Trey Lance. I always laugh with hamstring injuries. So they go, oh, he'll be fine. When? How often are they fine? Like the next week. Like even if because they said it's worse than expected. We expect him to be gone for like 2 weeks. That doesn't seem bad. Seems kind of like a hamstring injury.
That's true. They linger. That's what they are. No, I'm with you. Unless it like he ripped it or something, and I haven't heard that he tore it.
Yeah.
Just say it's a hamstring injury, and I think he'll be fine. He's a quarterback, so thank God. If he's a wide receiver, we'll be like, oh man, it's gonna be tough. He's not Nico Collins. I think 2 weeks is probably for him sufficient enough.
Yeah, and we'll see what they say that the CeeDee Lamb one's not major. It didn't look great. So I don't know.
Though. Shoulders are tricky too.
Yeah. So I don't know. Sticking your star receiver that you just paid all that money for in a season where it's not. I don't know if I'm going to put him out there when he's clearly still diving out there and trying to make the big plays. I don't know if I put him back out there, but they may be still in the mode of we think we can get back into it. We think we can, once we get those defensive players back, we'll be good to go. So let's put Cooper Rush in, who gives us the best chance to win, most likely. For a game or two, if Dak's out, I think Cooper Rush gives you a better chance to win if you're trying to stay in.
Oh, there's no doubt. Yeah, I agree with that.
But I think Trey Lance has the biggest boomer bust.
Yeah, no, you're right. I'm not. I agree with that. He does. If you're trying to win games, go with Cooper Rush. I don't know. I think at the Cowboys, I don't know. You might be past that point, but they'll probably go with Cooper Rush because the owner is delusional. I think you're closer to tanking than you are to competing.
No, and I'll put it this way, too. I think as good as Cooper Rush is, you probably get 3 games out of him before it starts to decline pretty precipitously and go downhill, because that's just how quarterbacks are in the NFL. You get 2 to 3 games before everybody's got the film on you, and it starts to turn pretty quickly.
There's film on Cooper Rush already, though. He's been out there.
There is, but I don't know if there's a ton. Like, I don't know if you have the back-to-back games, what the game plan is going to be, knowing where he's going with the ball. And I think
this offense, he's got fewer options than he did before. Sure. You got no real running game. I guess the running game did improve with Rico Dowdle, but no, you got a good point. I guess it would take a while. But my thing was the Cowboys, you weren't that good when everybody was healthy. So I don't think waiting for everybody to get healthy is going to change the fortunes of the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are just not a good football team. We're past the point of, hey, let's make a trade to fix this and fix that. No, there's too much. There's too much of the blueprint that for the Cowboys is broken. Like, I don't know if you can fix it in one season.
And every time you fix one, it seems like something else is right behind it.
Yeah. So they shouldn't. Maybe they're not ready to give up on the season, but like I said, I think they're closer to being sellers now than buyers, and starting to think about the draft fortune of next upcoming draft, rather than thinking about how they can compete during this season, especially with the injury to Dak Prescott. But we shall see. All right, we come back. We'll get into what the facts, what the stats on the other side. Talk some football. We'll talk college football and NFL football in what the facts, what the stats. Got a bunch of stats and factoids to share with you from both levels. All that and more right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Local, and Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time for What the Facts, What the Stats. We were talking about the Kansas City Chiefs and their undefeated start to the 2024 season. How about this? The last 8 games in which the Chiefs have trailed at any point in the second half, including the playoffs from last season, they've won. Last 8 games in which the Chiefs trailed at any point in the second half, they still won. No other team in NFL history has won 8 straight games in which they trailed in the second half, regular season or postseason, guys. This is why it was a miscalculation by Todd Bowles. Because it's like they're the most clutch team since Brady and the obviously dynastic run of the Patriots. No team has been more clutch than Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. You must assume that if you give them another opportunity to beat you, that they would. You have to try to, man, you got to vanquish the Chiefs when you have a shot. If you give them any life at all, they will make you pay for it. And he gave them life, and they made him pay for it. And they had him on the ropes. They really did. But the key is you can't let Mahomes back on the field. You can't let him back. You have him on the sideline. That's how you vanquish the Chiefs. You can't do it with Mahomes on the field. It ain't going to be your defense versus Mahomes. That ain't going to happen. It's got to be your offense versus that defense. And the bad part is that defense is now getting better. Now it's a top 5 defense in the league. It used to be like, oh, at least I can beat their defense. It's top 12, top 15. No, it's a top 5 defense now too. So good luck with that. But that's the only way you can beat the Chiefs. You're not going to be, if Mahomes sees the field, it's pretty much a done deal. You know that. Nah, we all know that now. That's why Baker Mayfield had that reaction. He knew. He's like, yeah.
Like, if you don't give me the ball.
Come
on, man. I need the ball in my hands to win this game. I don't trust nobody. It's Patrick Mahomes.
It's Patrick Mahomes. He already knew. Everybody knew. We all knew. It's like, oh, Mahomes got it. Done deal. We know how the story ends. We just needed to see, the plot play out, but we knew the ending. Patrick Mahomes is gonna find a way to get in the end zone or find a way for the Chiefs to win that game. So there you go. That's how clutch they've been. Getting back to some other what the stats here. I got a couple more. How about this one? And I threw this out there a little bit earlier, actually, about the how about this one? This was from yesterday. For best completion percentage in a single season. Right now, Jared Goff is at 74.9%. We were talking about how good Jared Goff was, and he may be, and his MVP odds are not real high right now either. I think he's like 4th or 5th. I think Jared Goff should be higher than that, but we shall see. But his best completion percentage in a single season, he's at 74.9%. That would surpass Drew Brees, who has the single season record for completion percentage. He's at 74.4%. Drew Brees has 2, 3, and 4. His 2018 season, 2019 season, and 2017 season. He was at 74%, 74.4%, 74.3%, and 72%. Oh, but how about this? If you're looking at best completion percentage in a single season, Jaden Daniels is 6th right now.
Jeez.
71.5%. Young Jaden Daniels. Isn't that crazy? All right. How about this, Cowboys fans? We were talking about Rico Dowdle and how good he's been lately. How about this? Rico Dowdle is averaging over 5 yards per carry in his last 3 games. If you add up all of his numbers as a rusher, over 5 yards per carry in the last 3 games. Rico's been playing pretty well for the Cowboys. So if you're looking for a bright spot, there ain't many for the Cowboys. That would be one of them. The Rico Dowdle actually is finding his form now. They're giving him the football a little bit more. All right, there you go. That's enough stats for what the facts, what the stats. We'll share some more of those actually coming up on the other side. So we're going to talk about that Monday Night Football game we witnessed last night with the Kansas City Chiefs getting another win. And yes, they still are undefeated. The last lone undefeated team in the NFL. We'll discuss that. Also, the magnificent performance from the 5-star true freshman Trey Johnson for Texas basketball. We'll discuss that as well. It was in a loss, but Longhorn fans can't help but be giddy about what they saw from the true freshman. All right, we'll get into that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis coming back on the horn. Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a top of the charts Tuesday on the show, which means my man Patrick, my co-host and the Idealian on the show, he comes up with all the musically themed days of the week. But on the top of the charts Tuesday, he plays jams that reach the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. So we appreciate all of his efforts and all of his creativity with that. Also, we appreciate him hooking us up with the topic for the big fat poll of the day, which is already posted at the Horn ATX on X. And Patrick, give the folks the topic for the big fat poll of the day.
Big fat poll of the day. Today, we're asking you how many rushing yards will Florida have against Texas? We gave you 0 to 75, 75 to 125, 125 to 150, and 150 plus. Right now, 75 to 125. It's a pretty big range, 50-yard range. So it's pretty big. I feel that's 57% right now, 22% for 125 to 150, and 0 to 75 is at 17%, and just 4% say 150 plus. I just don't know any other way they're going to move the ball, and I think teams are going to move the ball. I think they have a good enough a big enough O line. They have large humans, so I think they're going to be able to lean a little bit and pick up 3.5, 3.8 yards per carry.
That's kind of what I'm saying. Like I said, they don't break any runs, but it's just they're a break for them. Breaking a run would be 7 yards, like a 7-yard run or something like that.
But they're just going to keep doing it over and over and over all game. So if you just keep doing that, at a certain point, they add up.
Yes, that's why. That's what I think is going to happen. And so I think I'm at between 125 and 150. But I do think it's possible for them to end up getting with it just because of the sheer amount with the third string walk-on transfer quarterback from Yale in there. There's no way they're gonna put too much in his hands, guys. I think they'll wade. I think if Texas gets up big, I don't think you're gonna get them doing what Michigan did. I think they're gonna wave the white flag pretty much. And man, it's our third string quarterback in there. We can't even afford him to get hurt. We're just gonna still run the football. And they may take some more chances, but they're not gonna abandon the run and just start dropping back, trying to throw with that.
No, but
kid,
they may now
be disastrous.
They may pull the leading running backs too, though. And so if you push your running backs out because they don't want to get them hurt, then
That's
if
fair.
you go third and
That's
fourth
fair.
string running backs, you're probably cutting that 30.5 to 1.52. Not carrying that, taking that average down a little bit more.
I like their running backs though.
I do too.
Like
that's why I asked the question. I think they have good
player.
I think they have really good running backs. I think the run game's been really good. So I think it's an interesting look just because Texas' run defense has been really good this year. I think the defense overall has been really good. But this feels like a game where they have to run the ball. And so if Texas can stop them running the ball, then this is not even – doesn't feel like it's even really
It's
game.
Gonna be I'm with you. I'm with you. I think it's just gonna be tough on them regardless. Yeah, rushing defense, Texas. I mean, their pass defense is number 2 in the country, but the rush defense at least drops down to 16 or something like that. So they're giving up an average of 105 rushing yards a game. Texas is. Like I said, they'd be lucky to get around there. So I do think because they got the big bodies, they're an SEC team. Florida's got talent because it's Florida, and I like their backfield. I'm trying to think if Texas has played. Georgia's backfield was really good. Other than Georgia, if Texas has played a backfield, if Montrell Johnson plays, who he wasn't available last couple of weeks, if they have a backfield that has been just for the running backs as talented as Florida's backfield, because I do like the backs that they have.
Yes.
Georgia had NFL back there as well, and we saw the plays he made. The NFL running back can make some plays on you. Actually, the what was it? Oh, maybe it was Colorado State's running back. He made a couple of plays against Texas, but either way, they're going to be overly reliant on the running game. That's the point of the question. So right now, I'm between 125 and 150. At first, I was like, maybe to get 150, but I'm between 125 and 150, just because the SEC is a line of scrimmage league. They got big bodies. Even Sark talked about that. Matter of fact, we'll hear from Sark when we go behind the burn-on curtain talking about Texas' upcoming opponent, the Florida Gators. All right, that's the topic for the Big Fat Poll today. We'll also dive into the game last night between the Chiefs and the Bucks. Actually, it was a thrilling overtime win for the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll talk about Todd Bowles. I think he made a dang coaching mistake. We'll get into that, but also talk about the DeAndre Hopkins effect, the impact. We all knew it was going to happen. I'll give you the numbers that back it up, but it looks like the Kansas City Chiefs looks like they're going to be transformed by the presence offensively of DeAndre Hopkins, and it has happened the last 2 weeks. We've seen a different Kansas City offense, and I think DeAndre Hopkins' acquisition is a big part of that. So we'll get to that coming up. We'll hear from Todd Bowles a little bit, and also we're going to hear from DeAndre Hopkins. But first, let's get the Horn headlines. So let's get updated, educated, and informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the NBA, the Spurs lost their game with the Clippers 113-104 after a hot start. Victor Wembanyama had 24 points, 13 rebounds, and 9 blocks in the game, but the Spurs were outscored by 13 in the fourth quarter after squandering a 26-point first-quarter lead. Greg Popovich missed his second game due to an illness, but is said to be resting at home, hoping to rejoin the team soon. The Rockets got a big 109-97 win over the Knicks with Alperen Sengun putting up 25 points and 14 rebounds. And the Mavericks dropped one to the Pacers 134-127 in an offensive battle with 11 players scoring in double figures for the two teams. There are no NBA games today for Election Day. In the NFL, the Chiefs stayed undefeated in a 30-24 overtime win over the Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield led a late touchdown drive to tie the game, but the Chiefs won the coin toss in overtime and scored on a Kareem Hunt touchdown to win the game. DeAndre Hopkins had his biggest game for the Chiefs so far with 8 catches and 86 yards and 2 touchdowns. And in college basketball, number 6 Gonzaga made a statement on an opening night with a 101-63 win over the number 8 Baylor Bears, while projected number 1 overall pick Cooper Flagg impressed in his debut with 18 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists in a Duke win over Maine. Texas lost their opener to Ohio State 80-17 in the Hall of Fame series in Las Vegas. Trey Johnson set a new record for freshman scoring in a debut game with 29 points while adding 5 rebounds and 4 assists, but hot shooting from Ohio State proved too much. Texas will look to get in the win column on Friday against Houston Christian at the Moody Center. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines, and we'll get back to some of those Horn headlines. So we want to talk a little bit of Texas basketball, too, as well, when we go behind the burnt orange curtain. Let's talk about the game last night. Kansas City Chiefs remain undefeated. We told you how it was going to happen. Kansas City Chiefs, they aren't running away with any of these games. They know how to flip the switch, and they know how to turn it on in clutch time, and that's exactly what they did once again in clutch time. And it was I gotta tell you, I do think for a moment that the Bucks had a chance to vanquish the Kansas City Chiefs and give them their first L of the season when Baker Mayfield was able to orchestrate a 10-play, 81-yard drive in less than 2 minutes and left 27 seconds on the clock. They have the decision to either go for 2 and try to win the game in regulation, or to kick the extra point and then leave 27 seconds, which, by the way, may have been too long. It was 27 seconds with 3 timeouts for the Kansas City Chiefs, but they had to win it in overtime. But when you are on the road, because you're in Kansas City and you're playing against an undefeated Kansas City team, and you're playing against the most clutch quarterback in the league, and you're playing against the most clutch team in the league, you don't give them another chance to close out the game. If you got a chance to win the game, you got to treat it like a bank robbery, man. You're on the road. You're stealing a win. All right. You're going on the road to steal a win from a team that is trying to three-peat with an undefeated start to the season. No, man, you treat that like a bank robbery. All right. You go in there and you get the hell out of Dodge as soon as you can. I think he should have went for 2. I think they had the momentum. And the reason that he gave as to why they didn't go for 2, he did mention the wet conditions and that being a part of it. And I get it. The wet conditions, that's a variable you have to consider. There's no question about it. But man, they had just drove down the field, 81 yards in 10 plays in less than 2 minutes in those wet conditions. And Baker Mayfield was feeling it. I think I go with your team was believing too at that time. They just went down on Kansas City and drove the football down, and it was 23-24. Kansas City was up. I think it was a dang coaching mistake by Todd Bowles. You gave Kansas City twice, actually. You gave them 27 seconds in regulation with 3 timeouts. And then, of course, they end up winning the toss, winning the coin toss for overtime. And then they get the ball, and, of course, they go down and score. But if you've been watching, and he knows this because, hell, he ended up being a part of the team that beat Kansas City in the Super Bowl, but he's observed this Kansas City team and what they've become on this dynastic run. They are clutch. They're clutch at all times. You cannot allow them a chance to close out a game. He did, and they did. And I think that ultimately that came back to haunt them. The Bucs should have, in my opinion, you knew you were going to, there's a more chance you were going to lose that game anyway, just because you were going up against a better team. You were down Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. You didn't even have your best weapons offensively, and you were still able to go down 10 plays, 81 yards in less than 2 minutes. No, man, you roll the dice with that momentum. You keep going with it. And I think, like I said, I think he made a dang coaching mistake. And Andy Reid was even asked about it. And Andy Reid said, what do you think about Todd Bowles deciding to kick the extra point rather than going for 2? And he said, I'm glad he did it. I'm glad he did it. Because I think even Andy Reid at that time figured, oh, this ain't good. Yeah, they're not going to give us another chance. They're not going to give Patrick Mahomes, the most clutch player since Tom Brady in the NFL. They're not going to give him another chance. And that's how you have to beat them. You cannot give Patrick Mahomes another chance to beat you because most of the time he will. And he did.
No, and I mean, the way the Baker's playing right now, he's one of those guys I trusted in his hands. Say, look, I get, the odds are probably still not technically in my favor, but they're more in my favor than I got to go 50-50 on a coin flip. And then if they get the ball, it's like 90-10. Yep. So if we get the ball, it's still going to be wet. We have to drive down and score a touchdown because we can't kick a field goal. But even if we do that, then they can go for 2 on their end. If we go and get a field, like they can still go and win it at this point. It's just there's too many things that Kansas City's too good at doing. Yep. I get the concept that with the rain, you saw the play before the touchdown where Baker put a good ball low for Cade Otton, and he just wasn't able to pull it in because of the ball being wet in the rain. But you just have to have that confidence in your team when they're playing that well, when Baker's feeling it, to go into it. And if you lose, I don't think anybody gives you flack for going for it. I know you're worried about it in the moment of, well, I'll be the idiot if I go for it and don't get it. Go. You're in the game. You're not supposed to be in this situation where you have a chance to win right now. So you got to take it and seize on the moment. It's probably a learning experience for Todd Bowles when he walks off and he goes, wait, everybody wanted me to go for it?
Everybody.
I really thought maybe that'd be like 50-50. Some people want me to go for it. Everybody wanted me to go for it.
Yeah, man. Because you had it. I mean, you felt the momentum to kind of change. It just it shifted at that time. And yeah, they always say in poker, right? There's a saying, sometimes you don't play the hand, you play the man. Think about the team you're going up against in that situation, that moment. It's Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. It's Andy Reid. You cannot allow them another chance. As Patrick, you just mentioned, they're too good at too many things for you to allow, now we got a coin toss, which is a variable that you don't control. Then you got the overtime rules that you got to worry about. Oh, they're at home, by the way. Oh, there's variables with the weather. That's a lot of stuff you can't control. What you could have controlled that moment was, dude, if we get this 2-point conversion, we win this damn game. Guys. All right, who got a money play? Everybody's got their money plays or 2-point plays. We practice it. Everybody knows it. Let's go. Everybody believes because we're in this damn game, right? We're in it. Let's go. Let's go. We got the momentum. Let's go. And like you said, if you don't make it, everybody goes, you know what? They probably shouldn't have been in the game anyway with no Mike Evans and no Chris Godwin. And yet Baker Mayfield, playing with a lot of grit and playing some of his best football, was able to go out there and kind of gut you a great drive at the end of the game. And I think that's, something that they'll regret later on. And by the way, that would have been a big win for them. They kind of needed that win because the Bucs are playing some good football. They need to make a trade for a wide receiver. Speaking of trade deadline, I don't know what the timetable is on the Mike Evans, Chris Godwin stuff, but the way they're playing good football.
Chris Godwin looked like he's not coming. He's done for the season.
Yeah, he's done.
So
I don't know
Mike
what the
Evans, we don't know what his timetable is. I don't know, but yeah, no, I mean, I brought up that the Cooper Kupp trade would be an interesting one if the Rams were willing to part with him. That there were some ties there. There's a few little ties that the play caller actually had been with the Rams when Cooper Kupp came in the league. That Baker Mayfield knows Cooper Kupp from his time with the Rams a year or so ago. So there is a few ties that you can put in there that would make an interesting pickup for them to go after if the Rams are willing to give him up.
Yeah.
We don't know if
the reports were that at the time back, a couple of weeks ago they were, but I don't know where they are now.
And now they've won a couple games.
Won 3 in a row. They won 3 in a row. So they could win that division.
Yeah, they're 4-4 right now. And
anybody can win that
division.
They're
a half game behind Arizona, who's 5-4. So
yeah. So no, that's what I'm saying. Like they may not be sellers anymore. They may have now changed their mind a little bit. Because by the way, Matt Stafford's playing some really good football right now. He really is. He's playing some of his best football too. Okay, so I'll say this about the DeAndre Hopkins thing, and everybody knew that it was going to be a match made in heaven and a unfortunate hell scenario for the rest of the NFL when DeAndre Hopkins ended up being traded to the Kansas City Chiefs. And I'll say this for him, it's actually, we knew it was going to work out for both parties, but he had his second multi-touchdown game since week 7 of 2021. So he hadn't had a multi-touchdown game since 2021. And his second game with Patrick Mahomes, he kind of finds this fountain of youth. And by the way, that's happened with the Chiefs before. Remember Juju Smith-Schuster? He had a 100-yard receiving game, which was his first since like 2022. He had one of those early this year. Kareem Hunt had a 100-yard rushing game, and it was his first since like 2020.
I believe he had a 100-yard rushing game again this year. This game.
I think you're right. Yeah. No, he actually leads the Chiefs with 118 touches and 465 scrimmage yards this season.
And
he has the most touches and scrimmage yards in the first 5 games with a team by any player signed mid-season in the Super Bowl era. He's like the catalyst of the offense right now. You can go to the Chiefs and they will like revive you. They'll kind of bring you back to your prime for a few games. It's amazing. Nobody else can do that.
Well, the craziest part is he's not even playing really great football. He's averaging under 4 yards a carry. Like, that's not good football.
But with the Chiefs, it's
good
enough
enough for what they needed to do, which is basically not be so boom or bust that he's keep getting yards and putting them ahead of the chains. So now Patrick Mahomes can do what he needs to do, and then he gets a little bit more time when he's throwing the ball. But he's not even doing anything great. They're just giving him a ton of touches.
Yeah, no, you're right. It's just they're just running the offense kind of through them, but they don't really need it. Remember, this is their first game, guys. This is their first game scoring more than 30 points. All right, all season. They hadn't scored 30. They hadn't scored at least 30 or more all season long. They actually had an 18-game streak where they were scoring under 30 points, but it didn't matter because they were winning games. That's how remarkable it is. They've been able to really change and transmogrify their blueprint to win. They're averaging, how about this? They're averaging 24.7 points per game. I believe the Chiefs are this season. That is the fewest points per game by a 7-0 team since the 2015 Broncos.
And they needed overtime to do it in this one.
So, yeah, sorry, this was prior to this game. Sorry. Yeah, but at the time. Yeah, they needed overtime to get that extra. You're right. It's a great point. They were right at that average. They were right at 24 points per game. That's who the Chiefs are right now. But it's amazing what DeAndre Hopkins so that may all change, by the way. Now that DeAndre Hopkins has been added to the equation. I'll give you everybody's numbers since DeAndre Hopkins been added. So Patrick Mahomes with DeAndre Hopkins, without DeAndre Hopkins. Without DeAndre Hopkins, first 7 weeks, weeks 1 through 7, he was 67% completion percentage, 6 passing touchdowns, 8 interceptions, 82 passer rating. Last 2 weeks with DeAndre Hopkins, 74.4% completion percentage, 276 passing yards per game, 5 passing touchdowns, 1 interception, and a 107.4 passer rating. Travis Kelce without DeAndre Hopkins, without DeAndre Hopkins, 28 receptions, 245 receiving yards, 0 touchdowns. With DeAndre Hopkins, 24 receptions, 190 receiving yards, and 1 touchdown. He actually had back-to-back games with 10-plus receptions for the second time in his career. Since 2018 was the last time that Travis Kelce had back-to-back games with 10+ receptions, and with DeAndre Hopkins, that has been the case. Yeah, Patrick Mahomes had his first three passing touchdown game of the season, and they had the first time they've scored at least 30 points this season. So it's
Do you know what
he is having an immediate impact on this score.
Yes. Do you know what I just realized about Kareem Hunt though?
What's
Of
that?
why he's being used this way and what they're using him for? They're driving him like a rental car. They go, Pacheco's coming back. We don't need you in the playoffs. We don't need you. We literally are going to run you as hard as we can and for as long as we can. And when the wheels fall off, fine. We'll get Carson. Isaiah Pacheco will be back, and that'll be our dude. So we're fine when Pacheco. So we don't normally you don't run a running back this hard, especially a guy like Hunt, who's not necessarily the biggest guy in the world. You don't necessarily run them like that this early in the season. But it feels like they are. It's a rental car to them. Like, we're literally,
right.
dude, our car's in the shop, man. Well, I'll take care of that one. When Pacheco gets out, he's ready to go.
It's a good take. I like it. I'm with you. I think you're right about that. It seems obvious because I didn't realize he had those numbers you brought up. He hadn't been extremely productive, but they it's a lot of usage, a lot of targets, a lot of touches for him. And they probably figure, hey, man, if he wears out, who gives a damn? And Kareem Hunt's probably fine with it too. He's 29. Most teams give up on you at this point.
Exactly.
At least he's getting a chance to showcase himself. He's like, no.
And I mean, he's got a shot to get a ring.
He's got a shot to get a ring. Yeah. I don't know. It's like I said, it's a win-win right now. And that offense, it might start clicking now that they have DeAndre Hopkins added to the mix. But either way, it doesn't matter. They're just clutch, man. Patrick Mahomes is the most clutch quarterback in the league. The Chiefs lead the NFL with 6 one-possession wins. They have 6 one-possession wins so far this season. I mean, they know how to flip the switch when they need to flip the switch. And last night I gave the stat earlier that last 8 games in which the Chiefs trailed at any point in the second half, they've ended up winning. So a lead is not safe against the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes plays his best football in the fourth quarter. He has 5 total touchdowns, 0 turnovers in the fourth quarter. He's got 0 touchdowns and 4 turnovers in the first quarter. To my point about flipping the switch, he literally flips it in the fourth quarter. He becomes a different quarterback in the fourth quarter and different quarterback on third downs. In this game, he was at his most effective when it was needed the most. He was 11 of, if you go look at it, he was 11 of 13 on third downs alone. 3 touchdowns, 10 first downs on third down. His 2 incompletions on third down came in the final 3 minutes of regulation. I'll repeat. He was 11 of 13 on third down for 126 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 10 first downs. His only 2 incompletions on third down came in the final 3 minutes of regulation, basically. Dude, other than that, he was perfect on third down. He was damn near perfect on third down. He was 34-44, 291 yards, 3 touchdowns. I feel like I know the end to this story, unfortunately. And it's that the Kansas City Chiefs 3-peat and win a Super Bowl. I would love to be wrong. I would love to be shocked and surprised. The NFL has a way of doing it. They do. They do have a way of adding a plot twist to the story. I'm hoping there's a plot twist. But right now, it's just looking like Kansas City because now the offense is getting better. And think about it, the Chiefs have allowed fewer than 28 points in 29 straight games, including the playoffs. The only team with a longer streak this millennium are the 2000-2002 Eagles, who they had 34 straight games, allowing fewer than 28 points. Best defensive coordinator and a top 5 defense now, too. It's going to be tough. It's up to Detroit. It's going to be up to the Baltimore Ravens in that category. There ain't many teams that I think, obviously San Fran, if they're healthy, they could be in that conversation to knock off the Kansas City Chiefs. Not a lot of teams that are in the conversation to knock off the Chiefs right now. Somebody's got to give them the first L of the season. Do we see that on the horizon? Who can do that? Where do we see that?
I don't even know.
Oh, now because now we got to start talking about potential undefeated season here. Like, because now like I said, the offense is getting better.
We're at 8-0 right now.
We're 8-0 now, so now we're close to halfway. Now we got at least potential. We have to examine and at least discuss the potential possibility of them going undefeated.
All right, there's a couple games in there. I mean, the Broncos, they're 5-4.
I mean, any given Sunday, but come on, guys.
You get the Bills there in 2 weeks.
There you go.
You get the Bills there.
All right, Josh Allen, put your cape on, brother.
And then
you're out there.
You got the Texans and the Chiefs.
Texans. Oh, right now.
I'm just that's not
how the Texans going to block Chris Jones? Do we know how the Texans are going to block Chris Jones?
No.
How are they going to block Chris Jones?
Well, I mean, I'm hoping by that point they let us get another player back there and we get 12 on the field. We just gonna have 2 left guards.
That's the only way. That's the only. There's no way. I mean, yeah, that's the only way.
No, believe me, when I watched that was when I was watching Quinnen Williams just push him around. I'm like, I get that's Quinnen Williams, but also, who's the team to beat? The guy with Chris Jones.
The guy with Chris Jones. Yeah. No,
because they still have the Panthers and Raiders and Chargers and Browns.
Those are all wins, man.
Oh, then there. I mean, the Chargers are 5-3 too. So I don't know if
Chargers
Harbaugh
could do it. In division opponent could do it just because they know him so well.
Yeah.
So division opponent, the best chance would be a division opponent. I think Josh Allen, the Bills, and the division opponent. So because the Broncos defense is pretty good actually this year.
Yeah.
Broncos defense actually is one of the better defenses in the league.
No, and they do have that stretch of it's Texans on the 21st of December and then the Steelers on the 25th. So wherever the Steelers are at that point on Christmas, where that 4-day win where everybody's kind of beat up, any given Sunday or any given Wednesday, you get where that game is just going to be, all those games are going to be kind of weird playing on a Wednesday, right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, short weeks, all that kind of stuff, and you're right. I mean, it could happen any Sunday, literally any given Sunday. But like I said, we got to discuss it now. Like you don't really until you get to at least close to halfway through the season undefeated. There's no point in even discussing it. Now it's a realistic possibility for the Chiefs. Because at first they were so flawed. I thought eventually they'll just stumble. They're playing such bad football, and Patrick Mahomes is playing such bad football that at one point it'll catch up to them during the season and they'll lose a couple of games. Now we're adding DeAndre Hopkins to the mix. Now Patrick Mahomes is starting to play his best football. Kelsey playing his best football. The offense overall is starting to develop some cohesion. The defense has been top 5. Now you're talking about and then Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid are saying, oh yeah, DeAndre Hopkins doesn't even know the playbook. Wait till he learns the playbook. And now I'm like, man, now you're talking about a potential team that could turn into a juggernaut because they've already been the best and the most clutch team in the NFL. And they're the standard of, championship, pedigree right now in the league. But then you're talking about now playing to that standard. They haven't played to that standard. They don't have to. They flipped the switch. But now you may be talking about flipping the switch and leaving it on for a while. That's scary. All right, and then that would get Patrick Mahomes back in the MVP discussion. So maybe the odds have been right the whole time. Remember, the odds always had Patrick Mahomes still at the top.
Yeah.
Even though he's been playing some of the worst football of his career, worst start to a season of his career, and yet he's been top 3 in MVP
what
odds
is Vegas
the entire season.
You don't better get Mahomes. Man, how annoying would it be though if it's literally the two biggest names are Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes, and they're both going for their 3rd?
That's depressing for the rest of the league.
Yeah.
More depressing for Lamar Jackson, I guess. Because think about what, you'd be going for your 3rd and you would have a great argument for it. But think about your resume compared to Patrick Mahomes, and it'd be like, man, your postseason resume.
Hey, your hands. Just look at your hands.
They're
a little light. They're a little light right now.
Come on, man. Yeah, that Patrick Mahomes, he's got a lot of jury, man. A lot of jury. All right. Hopefully, the Longhorns can get themselves some jury this year. It does seem like college football. This is a grand opportunity for Texas football to snatch a national title. You're as good as any team in the country, and there is no juggernaut in college football. There is no elite team. I mean, Oregon's good. Oregon's great. And Ohio State is great too, but so are you. Texas football is a great team too. Like there's right. If there was a juggernaut, if Kirby Smart's Georgia looked like Georgia from 2 years ago, you'd be like, holy Chicago. Yeah, that's a storm coming. I don't know if Texas is gonna be ready for it. Right now, you look around college football after that bye week and go, I think Texas, if they're playing their best football, which I don't know if we've seen Texas play their best football, they're as good as any of these teams nationally. They're as good as any of these teams around the country. Any of them. That's why I feel like it's a golden. Usually there's a juggernaut. Usually it's like, man, this elite team. I don't know if we match up to this team. Who is that? There's nobody like that, and
No.
that includes Texas, by the way. Texas, you are not that yet. You
No.
could be.
But yeah, because Ohio
Could be.
State's not that. Penn State's not that. Oregon hasn't looked like that.
Oregon hadn't looked like that.
None of those
Right.
teams so the Big Ten teams, none of them look like it. In the SEC, we saw Georgia's defense look really good, but their offenses looked completely terrible the last couple weeks.
Carson Beck, what's he got? 11 interceptions in like the last 3 or 4 games. Like last 4 games, I believe. I think that just comes to my mind. If you're thinking about a chance, like that's what the NFL is dealing with. They're looking at the Kansas Chiefs going, darn it, they no way we can do it. We can't catch up. We got too many flaws. We don't measure up to that team. There's some teams going like the Detroit Lions going, hey, we need a pass rusher. So when we meet the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl, that we give our team the best shot, right? Lamar Jackson and the Ravens, they're looking up at the Kansas City Chiefs. So the NFL, everybody's looking up at the Chiefs. In college football right now, who are you looking up at? Like if you're Texas, not looking up at Oregon, really. You may be looking around at Oregon, looking around at Ohio State, looking around at Georgia. I don't know if you're looking up at them right now.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if those teams, in my opinion, are elite teams. But are they? That includes Texas. You are not elite, but you have a chance to be, and those teams have a chance to be too. Somebody is going to elevate and separate here, either late in the season or in the playoffs, and why not you? Why not you? All right, we'll come back. We'll discuss that.
The worst slogan, 2020, 2024. Why not you?
Why not you? Hey, it's election day, campaign season. Hey, you want some slogans? Why not you? Why not you, Texas? Damn it!
I don't see it on a burnt orange shirt coming soon. I don't see it.
All right, yeah, you're probably right, but you get my point, though. That's my plea. All right, we'll come back. We'll hear from Steve Sarkisian, and we'll also talk some Texas basketball on the other side, right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get to some Texas football conversation. Let's hear from Steve Sarkisian. He spoke to the media yesterday at his Monday media availability. Spoke about the upcoming game with the Florida Gators, but also spoke about what the team focused on during the bye week as well. But injuries, of course, are top of mind. How healthy are the Longhorns coming out of the bye week? Isaiah Bond, Andrew Makuba, two guys that missed the last game versus Vanderbilt. Here is Sark giving the update on their status going into the week versus Florida.
Both those guys practiced today, which was really encouraging, and they both, look pretty good. Again, it's a Monday of a game week, and so how do they respond each day, I think, is important for Drew and Isaiah. But today was a good start.
All right, so that's good news. I guess don't know how much you'll need both of those guys, but I think getting back either one of them practicing right now is a really good sign for their return. But Sark has also been asked about what the Longhorns wanted to fix, the issues they needed to address in the bye week. Here's Sark talking about what they wanted to fix in the week that they had off this past week. Here is Steve Sarkisian.
I think for us as a team, our mojo offensively is one thing I want to get back. Our whether you want to call it our sense of urgency, our intent, the way we go about our business. We've got a talented group of guys that are very competitive. They're tough. They work really hard. They want to play well. Sometimes you can overtry, if that makes sense. And to me, that gets back into your mojo. That gets back into our swagger a little bit. And I want to try to recreate that with the guys because I know what we're capable of. And if we can get that clicking to go along with what we're doing defensively and special teams wise, that would be a huge bonus.
That mojo. I'm glad he brought that up in the way that he said it. He's right about that. They have lost some of that offensive mojo. Some people thought it was Quinn. I think a lot of it's on the offensive line, in my opinion. We'll talk about that. But here's Sark going into a little bit more detail about that offensive mojo and what may be lacking there.
I don't know if it's loss of confidence. I think sometimes it's like anything. If you're a home run hitter, if you're a really good 3-point shooter, when you see a couple go in or you hit a couple out of the park, I think you gain the confidence. But when you don't hit a couple or you miss a couple threes, I don't know necessarily that those guys, those types of players, lose confidence. They just need to see one go in. They need to see one fly out of the park. And for us offensively, I think if we can find a little of that mojo, whatever that is, in a football vernacular, I think it's going to spark our confidence and really kick us into high gear. So I don't necessarily feel like we've lost it. I think our guys are working hard. They know they're good. They just want to see one go in the bucket. They want to see one fly out of the park to really get going again.
And I like the way Sark put that. And, sometimes I guess you be pressing a little bit. You can start pressing a little bit. You can start maybe trying to do too much offensively, working outside of your responsibility and your role offensively. Here's Sark talking about the offense not pressing and trying to make sure that they are fundamentally sound, trying to make sure that these guys stay on schedule, but not pressing too much offensively.
Yeah, I mean, it's like anything. It's like any of us. I use the basketball shooter reference or the baseball, home run hitter reference, and I just don't want our guys to press. We're plenty good enough, and we've got good enough players. We have good enough schemes. We've got enough balance to be a really electric offensive football team. And we didn't have a couple great weeks. That's okay. We're going to be all right, and making sure that we've got confidence to go do those things. And so I don't overdo it with them because I just want them to know I believe in them. And here's why I believe in them. And here's what we're going to do to ensure opportunities for them to go make some plays.
Yeah. And it seems like Sark has acknowledged that, there was some regression offensively the last 2 weeks, and whether that was Quinn's inconsistency or whether that's the offensive line, a combination of both of those things, or the lack of a dominant running game that can impose its will, whatever the combination of factors, that there has been some drop off offensively. If you go look at yards per completion the last 3 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks, because Texas had an off week too. Texas 122nd yards per completion, yards per pass. You go look at it. Texas is yards per attempt 102nd, yards per play 97th in the last 3 to 4 weeks for Texas. 108th in sack percentage, 115th in rushing yards per game, 109th in yards per rush. If you're just looking at the last 3 weeks of a sample size, I say for Texas the last 3 games because of course they had the bye week, but just calculating it where they rank now, let's say where they rank in the last 3 games and 3 weeks among the rest of college football, that is pretty alarming. And yeah, if you look at where they rank throughout the season, I mean, they're 19th in yards per play, 16th in yards per attempt. Yards per completion, they're 53rd. They're about average there. Yards per rush, 59th. They're about average. They're not below average in any major statistical category, but they have been the last 3 weeks. So yet a bounce back performance versus Florida is going to be really important for the confidence, but also so that I think Sark and the team, they don't start to worry that there is something systemic going on. And I think ultimately, if I am going to look at any element of the offense and hold them more responsible than another, it's the offensive line for me. Quinn, I know Quinn's got, I think Quinn had a bounce back performance, and there's a lot you can put on Quinn, but I think it's the offensive line because that's the focus of a lot of your penalties, which we'll hear from Sark talking about that. The running game not getting enough of a push, and your pass protection issues. That's all O-line. So O-line needed the most work in the bye week, in my opinion, and I think that's where I want to see the most growth and the most improvement from the bye week and going into that Florida game. But here's Sark. Penalties, big part of the issues with that plaguing the offense and why they're behind the chains and why they're so inefficient and inconsistent at times. Here's Sark talking about stopping the penalties and what they did to rectify that in the bye week.
Yeah, it was 2 weeks in a row. Yeah, I think there was 18 penalties our last 2 ball games. Some of which, we really try to minimize the pre-snap stuff, the stuff, the lining up offsides, the jumping offsides, and then trying to look at our fundamentals and techniques on some of the things that happen in play. And I think we've addressed those things pretty well. About hand placement from the offensive line perspective, in the secondary, getting our head around when we're in phase on the deep ball. We've been really good, as aggressive as we've been of getting after the quarterback. We've been good about not targeting people and doing those types of things. So we just got to get back to our fundamentals, our beliefs, and how we go about our business, and I think we'll be okay.
All right, let's hear from Sark talking about the upcoming opponent. Florida will have their 3rd string starting quarterback likely to start the game, but they have not ruled out DJ Lagway, who suffered a serious hamstring injury in the game versus Georgia, had to be carted off the field. Here's Sark talking about preparing for a quarterback without a lot of film on that 3rd string QB.
Well, I think you prepare for the scheme. Coach Napier's been doing it quite a while, his time at Lafayette and what he's done at Florida. So they've got a very intricate scheme, a lot of shifts, a lot of motions, a lot of formation adjustments that they tax you with. So I think that's the first part. Again, they're in a little bit of limbo from a quarterback perspective. But in the end of the day, I think, they're going to run their offense, and that's what we got to prepare for.
All right. Speaking of that offense, they obviously will have Aiden Warner is the 3rd string quarterback's name. There'll be some other guys they're hoping to get back. Eugene Wilson, Montrell Johnson. These are 2 of their better players. Eugene Wilson's a wide receiver. Montrell Johnson was their starting running back to start the season, but neither one of those guys were available in the Georgia game. But here's Sark talking about the roster, the big humans that he's seen on that Florida roster, that Texas will definitely have some problems matching up against just because of the sheer size and athleticism of the Florida roster.
I'll say this for you guys that will come down on the field in pregame. This will be arguably one of, if not the best looking team in our conference. They are big, they're long, they're athletic. I think they played 14 guys in their front seven this weekend against Georgia, so they've got a great rotation. Their depth got challenged in the secondary this weekend with a couple corners getting nicked up, but they got versatile guys there. So, Billy's done a great job recruiting that team. They continue to play really hard for him, which is a credit to him. But they're a good-looking football team, and so it's going to be challenging because they're physical at the point of attack. They've got good length. They play a multitude of coverages, and so that's the life in the Southeastern Conference. That's the way it goes.
Yeah, this is one of the top 5 most talented teams you'll face all year. If you look at the blue chip ratio, the teams that met the blue chip ratio criteria, at least 50% of your roster or more blue chip recruits, it was Michigan, Oklahoma, Georgia, Florida, and I think A&M, where your 5 teams are on there. So this is one of the more talented teams that you'll see. Speaking of, they'll need more big humans to match up against these big humans. Remember Vernon Broughton for the targeting penalty in the last game versus Vandy. He's going to miss the first half of this game. Here's Sark talking about the impact of losing one of their big humans going up against Florida this weekend.
I think about that all the time. I know that. And you're like, why would you think about it? Because it still is on your mind. You're like, okay, how do you do it? But yeah, Vernon's practicing as normal. I think it's a great opportunity. Jermaine Lole has really come on here in the last month of the season. And so we've been impressed with him. Bill Norton has stepped up. Alex January's continued to step up. Tia Savea, we're going to need more out of him. Like I said, the last 2 weeks, I think Sadir's had his best 2 weeks since he's been here. So we're going to need these guys. They're all going to have to step up that way. And so, again, and Florida's a really good running football team. That's what they believe in. And so we got to be able to stop the run in this game. We're going to need all those guys to step up.
There you go. So it was Sadir Mitchell shot out there from Coach Sark. All right, we come back. We'll get into off the record on the other side. We got some breaking news coming out of Cowboys country for you Cowboys fans. We'll dive into that as well. All that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis here. Let me tell you about my friend and my dentist, Dr. Greg Eckert, because he does a great job, and he'll do a great job for you. And I owe him and his team a huge debt of gratitude. I initially went there just for a routine cleaning and a checkup, and I thought everything was fine. It was not fine because during that checkup, during their thorough checkup, they found that my wisdom teeth had started to grow in sideways. It was impacting my molars, causing all types of issues. I was on the verge of a disastrous situation. If I had waited any longer or gone to some other dentist that didn't do such a thorough checkup, who knows where I'd be right now. Because I went to Dr. Ecker and his team, they made sure that I was taken care of. They scheduled the procedure. They made sure I was informed and educated and comfortable, more importantly, with everything that was going on. I had the procedure done. I was back at work, as you guys know, within a couple of days. And thanks to Dr. Eckert and his team, my dental health and dental hygiene have never been better. So I owe them a huge debt of gratitude. So hopefully for you, you can visit Dr. Eckert. You don't need to have all of your wisdom teeth extracted. Hopefully it's not that serious, but if it is serious, you're in great hands. I can assure you of that. But hopefully for you, it's just something very simple: general dentistry, teeth whitening, dentures, or porcelain crowns, veneers, dental implants, full mouth reconstruction, even root canal therapy. So if it's something relatively easy or simple, or if it's something really serious and potentially something that you've been worried about and concerned about for a long time, Dr. Eckert they are the folks that you need to visit, folks. They do a great job, whatever it takes to ensure you're getting the best quality dental care available. That's what Dr. Eckert and his team are all about. They're also always on the cutting edge, the technological advances in dentistry. And because of that, they can right now give you a brand new smile in just one day, permanently secure to your dental implants. No time spent without teeth. You'll get temporary fixtures until they complete your permanent smile, and you'll smile again with confidence and eat freely without pain or discomfort. It's a lifelike permanent solution. So if you've been told your teeth need to be replaced and you need dentures, don't freak out. Don't get sad or depressed about it. Learn about this new revolutionary alternative to dentures. A brand new smile in just one day sounds too good to be true. It's not. It's just Dr. U. It's a complimentary consultation, which means you got nothing to lose but so much to gain, because a confident smile can truly change your life. And Dr. Eckert wants to change your life for the better. Give him a call, 512-345-3166, or visit dreckert.com and use those benefits before you lose those benefits. You got to the end of the year, and Dr. Eckert and his team, they can really tell you how to do those to really help you and your family. And also, don't forget, you tell them heard it right here on the horn, you'll get a free Zoom whitening with any treatment or procedure you're getting with Dr. Eckert. dreckert.com, DRUECKERT.com. All right. Usually we get into some off the record stuff here, but we got to get to this breaking news for the Dallas Cowboys. I did not expect this. I will say I'm a little surprised by it, but I guarantee Cowboys fans are probably going to be disappointed in it. The Cowboys did make a trade. I said they should do something. I did not expect this. The Cowboys are acquiring Jonathan Mingo and a 2025 seventh round pick from the Panthers for a 2025 fourth round pick. So they're going to give up a fourth round pick. Now, the seventh round pick, I guess, in terms of the value, you do get a pick in return, a late round pick. But Jonathan Mingo, who was I got to go back and do my research on Mingo. Was he a second round pick for them? I believe he was.
Yes, second round pick in
there?
2023.
Okay, so they get 2 years of control.
Yeah.
You get 2 years of control of them. But, fourth round pick for Jonathan Mingo. I have not done research, and I don't know how productive he's been with the Carolina Panthers. Got to go back and look at some of that.
He has in his career 52 catches for 500 something yards.
So that's 2 years.
That's a year and a half.
Year and a half, basically. Yeah, so a year and a half on his second year. Yeah, I mean, but think about that was a putrid offense too that he was in.
It was
maybe projecting him with the Cowboys. Do you think he's going to help you right away? I mean, because the other news for the Cowboys, get to the other breaking news. They're placing Dak Prescott on injured reserve.
Jerry Jones has said. Jerry Jones has said that they're placing him on injured reserve.
Well, Jerry Jones is the owner and the GM.
I get that.
They're placing him on IR.
I feel like it's important in 2024 to state anything that he says as Jerry Jones says, because we know that it's not always the truth.
It's not, but he said it on the Fan.
Now, he did say they were going to acquire a wide receiver that they really liked, and they did.
And they did. See, so listen, Jerry, whether we want to critique Jerry and his ownership style, management style, whatever, he is the owner and he is the GM. If he says Dak's on IR, hey man, you don't get a better source than that. So Jerry says he's going to IR. I'm gonna assume Dak is going to be on IR, and that means for 4 weeks you're going to have Cooper Rush or Trey Lance. I think they should play Trey Lance, and then decide whether they're going to pay Trey Lance. But they should play Trey Lance instead of Cooper Rush. But Jerry says also this move indicates that they are not selling; they're buyers.
Yeah.
So they're not giving up on the season. This move indicates that they still want to be competitive. So I don't know how Cowboys fans are going to feel about that, and I don't know what position you're going to be in 4 weeks, in a month from now, when Dak Prescott comes back. So that means they're going to play Cooper Rush. They're not going to play Trey Lance. Trey Lance would be the option if you are looking more toward next season in the draft. This move indicates that's not what the Cowboys are doing. The Cowboys are still in on this season. They're not all in. They're in on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a move for next year too, that they feel that Mingo is a guy. I guess they felt that in the draft they wanted him and he didn't fall to him in the second round. But they liked him in the draft in 2023 and they didn't fall. And so they're still high on him. And they think maybe it was just the Panthers were toxic. And so they get him for a 4th rounder and they feel happy with that. Toxic. I mean, I feel like you probably could have waited till the end of the year and got him for less.
Well, that's what I said. That's why the move indicates they want to win right now. They want him to have an impact this year. Like that's kind of what
Jerry also has said in the interview, apparently, that he could see both quarterbacks playing this week.
Okay. I like that.
That he says that Cooper is going to start, move. But it could go. But Trey Lance is not saying that Trey Lance couldn't play. So,
yep. Yeah, they should have a Trey Lance package anyway. Even if he doesn't, so I mean, at this point, they should.
I mean, that was. I did not expect them to give up a 4th round pick for anybody.
I'm a little surprised by it too. I'm not gonna lie, I did not expect them to give that up for Jonathan Mingo. That name is surprising. I just have not heard. I didn't even hear the Cowboys were interested in trading for a receiver. Period.
No, no, that is,
and I don't even know if that of the issues they have, and they got a lot of them. Receiver is one of them, no question. They need another receiver because they did not have. If Brandon Cooks comes back, CeeDee Lamb injury, that probably, I'm sure, put a sense of urgency in terms of the how and when they needed to acquire a receiver. So I get that. So maybe the CeeDee Lamb injury is what would expedite that process. But man, they still need. If you want to compete this year, you need a D tackle, a run stuffing D tackle. You need a running back. So, hey, if you making moves, keep making moves then, Cowboys. Go ahead. Keep making moves.
Hey, all in, Jerry.
Don't stop. Yeah, don't stop making moves now with the Mingo thing. Make another move. Run stuffing D tackle.
What they have added statistically from this season from Jonathan Mingo, he has 12 receptions for 121 yards this season.
Okay. Yeah.
That's
I got to go look at his
target share went down very much immensely in the last couple of weeks. His target share has continued to dwindle more and more. I think the Panthers are pretty much ready to move on, I believe, and especially if someone calls you and says, "Hey, you know that guy you're planning to cut after next season? Mm-hmm. Here's a 4th for him." Okay, let's do that.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. It's and I'm talking about the other receivers. So the receivers that were traded recently, we saw DeAndre Hopkins. He went for what, a 5th? That was conditional 4th, I believe that was. And I believe the Devontae Adams, if I'm not mistaken, was a 3rd round pick conditionally.
Yeah.
Was it a 4th that conditionally was a 3rd? I know there are a lot of conditions on these picks.
Yeah, I believe the Devontae Adams was a 3rd that if he's all pro, then he moves to a 2nd, or if he plays for them in a conference championship, game.
I think you're right about that. Yeah, they had a lot of conditions.
So
on
there was like
theirs,
two
yeah.
things. So it was basically if they make it far in the playoffs or he makes all pro, then they get a second round pick for it. Neither of those right now look like that'll happen. But
and the Bills, they got Amari Cooper and a 6th round pick for a 3rd and a 7th, right? I believe that was the exchange. A 3rd and a 7th. I'm not sure. So basically a 3rd. I think it's how it works out. Because a 6th and a 7th, you can essentially they cancel each other out.
yes.
So basically Amari Cooper kind of went for a 3rd as well. So is a 4th round pick too much for Mingo?
Yes. And the
yes.
And the
yes.
And the Cowboys traded Amari Cooper for a 5th round pick.
Oh, yes, yeah. I remember. Yeah. That's no excuse for that. Still
I
no
know,
excuse to this day.
I know.
For that.
I just don't get the trade. I don't get it at this point.
I agree. I don't get it either.
I don't get adding a guy that feels like he's a work in progress.
Yeah, but that's a developmental project.
And two, it's like I get you say, well, I want him to learn the system, but the system changes next year, Jerry, because you're not keeping Mike McCarthy. So what is he learning?
That is true. That's true.
Is he going to learn to play with Dak in the 3 games they play together?
Unless we've talked about how, a quarterback becomes the executive and the system kind of stays with the QB. Like Aaron Rodgers' system stays with him. Peyton Manning's system went with him. Maybe the Texas Coast offense is Dak's offense now. Like, I'm with you. That's a great point that we talking about system. It changes. He's going to have to learn a new system after this season. So I'm with you.
It's just weird. It's just weird.
Jerry's saying they're still in on this season, basically.
Well, we know he's going to say that.
I know he just doesn't want the fans to give up on the season.
I
literally think these moves are just so it's just so that he can at least justify his remarks that no we're still in on this season. I believe in my guys. I think a lot of it is that because he wants to sell hope. And
do you think the Panthers, when they got that phone call, were like, "Oh, so you want to talk about Hubbard, right?" And they're like, "No, we want to talk about Mingo." They're like, "Huh? What? No, but
we were waiting on your call,
Jerry. We're pretty bad at our jobs, and we know that you need a running back.
Or do you want to talk to one of our D tackles potentially? You want to talk about one of those guys? Like, no, we want to talk about Mingo. And they're like, excuse me? I guess, yeah. And they're like, what do we want for Mingo? Do it a 4th. Tell them a 4th. 4th? Sure. Okay. They probably were surprised.
Ask for a 3rd. We'll talk about.
Seriously. All right. We'll come back. We'll discuss that and more, and the Dallas Cowboys, of course, and all of the breaking news that is leading up to the trade deadline, which is today. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Rivers coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a top of the charts Tuesday. That's when my co-host, the Idealionaire Patrick Davis, comes up with all the musically themed days of the week. But on the top of the charts Tuesday, he plays jams that reach the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. So we appreciate Patrick hooking us
Let's
up.
see.
There.
Rod, if you can guess, I'll tell you, this is the Beach Boys. Number
The
one
Beach
hit.
Boys.
Can you give me the year this came out? It was a number one hit.
This one? Oh,
This one from the Beach Boys.
It's very deceiving too, because it doesn't give off like a vibe like a lot of songs do. They give off like a vibe of a certain era and decade. I'm gonna go with 1978.
1988.
Damn it.
88.
Damn, a decade
Feels
off.
way late for this song to come out and be a hit. But
I know, I'm with you. I don't know why I was thinking. I thought early. I was like, I'm gonna be off his early 80s. I was gonna say 81.
no, but Beach
81.
Boys too is 60s. So
I did not know this thing. Late 80s. So this was like
88.
your last major hit.
yeah,
Had to be.
yeah.
'cause-
This is also when
Wow.
Jerry Jones sits in a meeting about what players to be interested in. This is what's going on in his head.
It's actually playing in his head. Oh, that's good though. I did not know that. See, there you go. I learned something new on every top of the charts Tuesday. Did not know that this came out in the late 80s too. Not even early 80s. I was thinking,
Yeah.
I was like, maybe early 80s. But wow, because it doesn't have a vibe though. It doesn't really have a vibe.
No, because
It
it's
usually-
a
it didn't have an
60s
80s vibe.
Yeah,
it didn't have
it's
an
like
80s vibe.
It's a 60s and 70s band in the Beach Boys in the late 80s.
Yeah, I didn't even know Beach Boys was still making music in the late 80s. I'm not gonna lie to you.
No,
Did not know
it's
that was the
weird to
case.
know that like this and Guns N' Roses aren't that far apart.
That would blow some people's minds.
Like
Right?
Motley Crue's going
Go
right
look
now.
at the Billboard charts at that
Yeah.
time. Beach Boys on there with you.
It's crazy, but
1988. No, it's true. That's a good point. Good point there. All right. Patrick also comes up with the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the day. Patrick, give the folks the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the day.
Big Fat Poll of the day today. We're asking you how many rushing yards will Florida have against Texas? We gave you 4 options. Right now, 75 to 125 is winning with 59% of the vote. Then 0 to 75. People saying this defense is going to come
Wow.
in strong.
Smother 'em.
17% of the vote, 16% for 125 to 150, and then 9% for 150 plus.
Yeah, I just figured this is one of the more talented backfields that Texas has seen. It's one of the more talented backfields that they've seen. And I think because of the big bodies they have, even Sark talked about it, they got big bodies on the offensive line. That maybe their focus, they'll be able to make some plays in the running game. Their focus will be the running game because they got third string starting quarterback in there. So I'm just giving Florida probably more respect than a lot of Longhorn fans are. So I'm going to say 125 to 150. I'm going to give them enough respect to go. If they're focused on just running the football, that they'll be able to churn out some yardage against Texas, especially with Vernon Broughton being out for that first half. I think that could help them out a little bit. So I'll go with Florida getting 125 to 150, but they don't get more than, there's basically more than 4.3 yards per carry. I mean, it'll be round 4, a little over or a little under 4 yards per carry, I think. So it won't be like they're having much success, but they'll be dedicated and committed to it because they have no choice. They got nothing else. They really don't offensively. That's a good question there about Texas. I wonder how much Texas is going to run the football. That's a big question for me in this matchup too, because Florida's weakness defensively is their rush defense. They're actually one of I think they're like 88th, close to 90th in rush defense.
And I think they may have a rush defense that the Texas can really go after, in that they do have the big bodies that you may not be able to go up the middle, but you could run on them, that they're not going to have the sideways movement as well. So a Jaden Blue or, even a Trey Wisner on that slow run game to the outside, that zone run to the outside, those may be more valuable in this game. So you might be able to run the ball pretty well on them because you do have the guys that can go outside of the tackles and run. And if that's going to be able to work, and, if you're able to do that, man, it takes those DB blitzes a little bit harder to pull.
Damn right.
It makes, when guys are trying to go in, but they have to protect on the edges and make your edges more have to be run stoppers. that could help out the game. So if you're able to get on the outside of these and not have to run it straight into those big humans that they have on the other side, where that was Sark saying during the presser, he's like, man, if you're down on the field, you'll see they match up, like size wise, they match up. So if you can get to the outside on them, though, it could work for you for Texas.
It's a great point because that was the Michigan game plan. I mean, that the best D tackle duo in college football. Texas was like, all right, well, we're not running at them. We're going to work smarter, not harder.
We're going to run away from them.
They run away, and they forced them to have to run sideline to sideline and wore them out a little bit. And then later in the game, they came back, started pounding the rock a little bit. That's a good point there. All right, we got a lot of breaking news to get you guys caught up on. So we'll do that. So let's hit the Horn headlines here first, and then we'll come back and we'll just try to hit as many of those headlines as we can, as many of those breaking news items as we can, creeping closer and closer to the trade deadline, which is today. Trade deadline for the NFL and the Cowboys among the teams that decided to make a move. We'll discuss it. But first, let's get educated, updated, and informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the NBA, the Spurs lost their game at the Clippers 113-104 after a hot start. Victor Wembanyama had 24 points, 13 rebounds, and 9 blocks in the game, but the Spurs were outscored by 13 in the fourth quarter after squandering a 26-point first-quarter lead. Greg Popovich missed his second game due to an illness, but is said to be resting at home, hoping to rejoin the team soon. The Rockets got a big 109-97 win over the Knicks with Alperen Şengün putting up 25 points and 14 rebounds. And the Mavericks dropped one to the Pacers 134-127 in an offensive battle with 11 players scoring in double figures for the two teams. There are no NBA games today for Election Day. In the NFL, the Chiefs stayed undefeated in a 30-24 overtime win for the Buccaneers. Overtime win over the Buccaneers. Baker Mayfield led a late touchdown drive to tie the game, but the Chiefs won the coin toss in overtime and scored on a Kareem Hunt touchdown to win the game. DeAndre Hopkins had his biggest game for the Chiefs so far with 8 catches for 86 yards and 2 touchdowns. And in college basketball, number 6 Gonzaga made a statement on opening night with a 101-63 win over the number 8 Baylor Bears, while projected number 1 overall pick Cooper Flagg impressed in his debut with 18 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists in a Duke win over Maine. Texas lost their opener to Ohio State 80-72 in the Hall of Fame series in Las Vegas. Trey Johnson set a new record for Texas freshmen scoring in a debut game with 29 points while adding 5 rebounds and 4 assists. But hot shooting from Ohio State proved too much. Texas will look to get in the win column on Friday against Houston Christian at the Moody Center. And that's your Horn headlines.
All right, Patrick, thank you for the Horn headlines. Appreciate those. All right, let's get to the big news for the Cowboys. A couple of items here. We actually do have some audio of Jerry Jones that we'll get to of him on the fan talking about the Cowboys quarterback situation. But the big news is the Cowboys made a trade actually before the trade deadline here, trading for wide receiver Jonathan Mingo. The Panthers traded Jonathan Mingo and a 2025 7th round pick to the Dallas Cowboys in exchange for a 2025 4th round pick from the Dallas Cowboys. Mingo is just 23 years old. It's his second year. He was a 2nd round pick. So he does have pretty high upside, and the Cowboys do have 2 years of control over them. They'll have this year and next year. So it is a potential impact move this year and a potential impact move for the future for the Dallas Cowboys. Some people are a little bit critical of the draft capital that you gave up because you did give up a 4th round pick. What's up with the Cowboys in 4th round pick? Didn't they give up a 4th round pick for Trey Lance? Didn't they give up a 4th for Trey Lance? And that was that was not worth a 4th round pick. You should not have given up a 4th round pick for a guy that
you're not going to play.
It wasn't going to play. Well, I guess now he's going to play.
But he's not your backup.
But he's not your backup. No, you spent way too much draft capital on that trade and what you had to guarantee him and roster bonuses as well. And then now you give up a 4th round pick for Jonathan Mingo. Maybe that's a sweet spot for the Cowboys. I remember DeAndre Hopkins was traded for a conditional 5th round pick. And I believe Amari Cooper, we talked about, he was traded basically for a 3rd, and Devontae Adams was traded for a 3rd. There was a Darius Smith went for a 5th, didn't he? Didn't Darius Smith just go for a 5th too?
Yeah, a 5th and No, they got a 7th back, so a 5th and a 6th for a 7th, right?
So
For a
yeah.
7th, yeah.
So
Yeah,
basically, yeah. So
yeah.
basically, yeah, they cancel each other out, kind of 5th.
And
So my point is, they gave up a lot. They really like him. They must really like him.
And Mingo, if you're looking on the other side, the reason why the Panthers are moving on, started off the season getting some targets and a few receptions. In the last 4 games, he has 5 targets and 1 reception.
Damn.
So basically fell out of favor in Carolina and is just not being used anymore, not being targeted. So they felt that he was not accomplishing enough for
Then
them.
why would you give up a 4th? Is what Cowboys fans would say. Like, hey, could you get him? Could you have gotten him a little bit cheaper than a 4th? Because it's like you just pointed out. Looks like they were already giving up on him. They were trying to get rid of him at one point, and 4th round pick is not getting rid of. Hell, you gave up, as you pointed out, Amari Cooper for
a 5th.
A 5th round pick. You were trying to get rid of him.
Yeah, and I get there's money involved, that a 2nd round pick is going to be cheaper and you get control of him.
Yes.
So there's all those in there. It's such a weird trade to do mid-season when your quarterback's going on IR.
Which we'll hear from Jerry Jones talking about that.
That's such a weird trade to make.
Among the if you look at these 72 wide receivers with at least 50 receptions since the start of last season, Jonathan Mingo is 72nd in receiving yards and in catch rate. He's 71st in yards per route run. He has not had a stellar start to his career. So this is a project for the Cowboys, a developmental project on top. So it's not going to have the impact this year right away either.
You don't expect it to.
Now it would be a surprise if he did.
I
but
mean,
doing that
if CeeDee Lamb does not play, he's playing.
Well, you're going to need him, because I don't know. Is Brandon Cooks even back yet, or is he still?
I don't think Brandon Cooks. We haven't heard yet.
He's back yet. You heard anything? So Jalen Tolbert and
Kevontae Turpin
and him and the Kevontae Turpin. Yeah. No, I'm not saying he's not going. He's going to play, but I'm saying I don't think he's going to have the impact that some people would hope right away, because he's still very early on his developmental, track, and he wasn't off to the best start in his career. So
definitely not what you'd expect from a 4th round pick.
I would say
at the trade deadline. Maybe over the offseason, but in the trade deadline, you go, okay, well, you're getting somebody who can help you right away. That's normally what the trade deadline's for. So
proven commodity. Yes. Yeah. That's why it's Darius Smith, proven commodity. Devontae Adams, proven commodity. Amari Cooper, proven commodity. DeAndre Hopkins, proven commodity. I mean, that's usually what you go. You go, because I see what the hole is in my roster, and I know what I need.
Yeah. I mean, the Bengals.
This is not like, this is, I know what I need. I need this specific thing. I need a pass rusher. I need whatever it may be.
The Bengals need more help in the running game, getting Khalil Herbert. You go, I know what Khalil Herbert is. He's not going to be, the best, but he gives me, probably 10 to 12 carries a game. I can put him in there and use him. 7th round pick, cool, get him right away. But a 4th round pick to pick up a guy that feels like a project with your quarterback being placed on IR.
The Vikings picked up, was it Cam Robinson, left tackle? Because they lost their left tackle.
Yeah.
Like, we need a left tackle. Go get left tackle. For this, it's now you did need a wide receiver. That's true. You needed one, because you got your 2 starting wide receivers. One's on IR and one is dealing with an injury right now in CeeDee Lamb. So you did need a wide receiver. I thought there were more pressing needs, but I will say this: if Jerry, and we'll hear from Jerry. Jerry's saying that, listen, everybody thinks the Cowboys are out of it. In Jerry's mind, they are not out of it. They're in the thick of it. They're right in the middle of it. He told Jane Slater, and he said on 105.3 The Fan, and we'll hear from Jerry in a second. But he basically said they're not selling, they're buying, which they just did. They made a move and got a receiver that they think is going to make an impact here, and they have control over for 2 years. So they're not selling. So they're not looking toward the future in the draft. Cowboys are looking at right now. The problem with that is, if you don't mind, Patrick, you get the Jerry Jones audio queued up for us here. The problem with that is it looks like Dak's injury is more severe than previously thought, and that he's going to be on IR. Well, at least that's what the owner and GM, Jerry Jones, said on The Fan. Here it is.
How are you guys feeling about the timeline for Dak Prescott?
Well, it's 50, but it's extended period of time here. So I wouldn't dare make a prediction when it could be. It's likely we'll IR him. And so we'll see kind of how his rehab goes.
Jerry, you guys are going with Cooper Rush. Was there significant thought to maybe going with Trey Lance and just seeing what you had there with the way that the record is right now?
Well, let's just don't dismiss the possibility of doing anything. And the going with has a past tense aspect to it that I wouldn't recognize. It's not impossible to incorporate some of the skills that we might get from both quarterbacks.
All right, there's Jerry. So he's saying it's possible both quarterbacks can play. And he said likely that. So it is not guaranteed that Dak's an IR, but he did say likely that he's an IR. Either way, he's going to miss at least 2 weeks. I think he's probably going to miss maybe more than that.
Yeah, I think you're at right now the same thing as the Texans had with Nico Collins, which is he's probably 3. So why don't we give it 4 and not rush this guy that could be, is an important part of our future of our franchise.
Totally agree.
So
yeah,
I think that there's that. And look, I'll give you Mingo. There's the thought you could have, which is we're going to draft a wide receiver next year. And we feel that Mingo is a second-round talent that we can get for a 4th-round pick. So we were going to draft one anyway. We'll give up our 4th to get the wide receiver we would have drafted in the 1st or 2nd next year. The problem with that is if you get him in and you realize, no, the Panthers were right. This guy is not good enough to be a wide receiver in the NFL.
Exactly.
You have now thrown away a 4th-round pick, kind of like you did for Trey Lance.
2 of them.
Where, and I was a fan of the Trey Lance trade at the time because I thought there was going to be a point where you played him. I thought there was a reason you were bringing him in.
Yeah,
clearly there wasn't, or whatever you thought you were going to do with him didn't work out. But this feels like a similar thing of we are getting him, and that all sounds great if it works out. But you're once again gambling on this with the odds really not in your favor.
And draft capital, you really can't afford to squander.
If it works, then great. If you get a 2nd-round wide receiver talent for the 4th-round pick, great job. But I don't know, like a year and a half in, normally the other team would tell you, we've tried to make it work, and it's not. Maybe the change of scenery will do it, but at 23 years old, it's sometimes difficult to flip that switch and go, no, it was just Carolina was toxic, and Dallas isn't.
Seriously, different. He was going to the Chiefs, and you were like, okay,
all
right,
going to like the Packers or something.
Yeah, you're like, okay, that culture there, they're gonna find a way to kind of redeem his story, or they'll find some way to resuscitate his skill set. I don't really see that with the Cowboys. They got a lot of issues, but that's a great point though. If you had it part of your plan to draft wide receivers next year, and you believe you can get value there, that's not a bad idea at all. But like I said, right now, I wonder. I said a 4th-round pick. I haven't seen exactly what year the 4th-round pick.
It's 2025. Yeah.
Okay. And what the Trey Lance 4th-round pick was that?
Was it?
I don't remember what that was from. Maybe they had more. I don't know. Maybe they had more. I'm not sure. I don't remember. Is my point. But man, you're gonna be hitting on some of those 4th-round picks. You better make sure. I'm with you on that, Patrick. You better make sure that you cash in. That this works, because the Trey Lance one is obviously a failed experiment. But at quarterback, you could argue because of the value of the position that it's worth it. That it's worth it to gamble on quarterback. Wide receiver, I don't know if it's worth it to gamble on wide receiver as much.
Well, no, and to gamble on when you know how many wide receivers are taken in the first couple rounds and how many kind of don't work out. So when you have the sample size and it's not there, I mean, again, maybe they have something scouted that they think Carolina was just using them wrong or whatever it was. But yeah, the last 4 weeks would make you a little bit worried why he worked himself out of a rotation that they were clearly trying to get him into, and other guys just passed him.
Yep. Agreed. With the Panthers. Ain't like they loaded with talent. It's not like it's an embarrassment of riches there or something like that. It's like, no, dude.
This is also a guy that they felt they needed to go out and get Xavier Legette the next season and draft another wide receiver early the following season because they may have missed on that one.
You know what I'll say about the Panthers, though? You know what? We can do that in Roger Rant, actually. I got a Panthers related, not rant, but I got something I want to bring up about the Panthers, and this is a perfect segue to do it. So we'll do that. But I know we have to hit the horn headlines because we haven't hit the horn headlines yet. So let's hit those.
We hit them.
Did we?
Yeah, we hit them.
Did we? Yeah. Okay. I wasn't sure about that. Okay. Okay, we'll come back then. Let's come back and then we'll get into my take about the Panthers and also more of the NFL smorgasbord on the other side. I want to talk a little bit about the Texans. We've talked about the Cowboys, of course, and then we'll also dive into some other NFL news, notes, and nuggets right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. A couple of things I want to get into. First of all, the wide receiver market in the NFL makes no sense at all. It hadn't made sense for a while. You guys know I've been talking about this for a minute. That the usually supply and demand kind of affects the value of certain commodities. Not the case with the wide receiver position, deepest position in football at any level, and yet it's still at the NFL level the wide receiver position now has become the second most valued position in terms of compensation because you have more wide receivers making $30+ million a year than any other position other than quarterback. So even though there's a lot of wide receivers to choose from in draft, the NFL is still paying them more than they've ever paid them before. And they're drafting more of them higher than ever before. And it just seems like, I don't know, this inflation of the wide receiver, inflation and kind of saturation of the wide receiver market has not really affected the value at all. running back, it affects the value. Quarterback, the rarity of the quarterback skill set, right, affects the value of. That's why the quarterbacks get paid so much money. Even the guys who aren't necessarily elite at playing the position. If it's your time to get paid, you get paid. But wide receiver doesn't work like that. And even the value, like the compensation and trade value for wide receivers is crazy, right? We talked about this. The Cowboys are a prime example of it. I mean, think about this: the Carolina Panthers, right? So Carolina Panthers traded 2 wide receivers so far this season. They traded Deontay Johnson, right? He was one of their wide receivers. He was like their top wide receiver, I think, or at least one of them. He had like 58 targets or something like that on the season. Deontay Johnson. Yeah, here, Deontay Johnson had 58 targets on the season for them. Or at least he has. And I think most of those, of course, were with the Panthers. So you go look at his, he was traded earlier this season, traded to Baltimore because Baltimore was looking for a number 1 guy that can beat man-to-man coverage. He did not have a great debut for Baltimore. Different discussion, though. But he was traded for a 2025 5th-round pick, basically. And I think Baltimore also received a 6th-round pick. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of the swap. And I understand that salaries are a big part of this in the background, salaries and also how much control you get over our receivers. So their age, contract, all things to consider. I'm just kind of looking at the trade value of these players. So Deontay Johnson basically goes for a 5th and a 6th swap. And he was Carolina's number 1 receiver. And then you get Jonathan Mingo, who we've told you has barely been productive at all, but high upside guy because he was drafted in the 2nd round just a year ago, or just a couple of years ago in the 2023 draft. He goes for a 4th round pick, swapping a 4th and a 7th, basically. And I'm thinking to myself, man. And then on the other side of that, you get DeAndre Hopkins going for a 5th round pick that's conditional. It could be a 4th round pick. Devontae Adams going for a 3rd round pick. Amari Cooper at one point was traded by the Cowboys for a 5th round pick and then now gets traded for a 3rd round pick. It's just really hard to, based on the precedent and based on the different transactions, hard to determine the value of like the wide receiver position. And I don't think anybody really can keep up with the value of wide receiver. Like it's no real way to predict it or to be able to estimate what a wide receiver is kind of worth in the league, draft value wise and salary wise. Like you just don't really know.
Well, I mean, I can throw into the confusion about Jalen Coker, who is one of the reasons why they feel okay trading Mingo is because Jalen Coker has stepped in and been a decent number 2 receiver for them. I mean, it's the Panthers, so they're not doing anything great. But in the last couple of weeks, said last 4 games, Mingo had 5 targets and 1 catch. In the last 4 weeks for Coker, he has had 10 targets and 15 targets. I can't do math on air. We know that, but he's also he's also been receiving the ball every single game. He's had 14 receptions on the year now with 222 yards and a touchdown. So he is somebody they feel is stepping into that role and doing it better than Mingo was earlier in the game. Or earlier in the year. So that's why they feel he's an undrafted free agent this year.
Yeah.
So to add into your value of everything, they now feel they undrafted free agent they got. He is
because that's cheap. This is cheap talent.
And they say we'd rather have that guy than the 2nd round pick we drafted. So the value of all that changes because his value to them is probably a little bit higher than Mingo's was, but for the Cowboys, Mingo's is higher.
Yeah, it makes sense. If you get a guy that's an undrafted free agent that can produce on the same level as a guy you're paying a ton of guaranteed money to, big time salary to, no, you go with the undrafted free agent guy. But it's just interesting that the value sometimes it doesn't line up, doesn't track player to player. It's all about, you're right. These almost like the beauty's in the eye of the beholder. The value, it really is determined by the team that wants you and how badly they want you.
Yeah.
Remember us all losing our mind over the Kirk, Christian Kirk contract. Remember that Christian Kirk contract with Jacksonville? And everybody was like, what in the world is that? That's a crazy contract to give him. But Jacksonville thought, hey, you know what? He's worth this. And a lot of the value after that was kind of determined based on that precedent. But it's interesting. The wide receiver position is just following a very strange, has a very strange trajectory in terms of how the position has been valued and the inflation of value in the position over the last 5 years. Like over the last 5 years, the draft capital being spent on wide receiver and the salary cap money, period, on wide receiver, the salary cap spending wide receiver has gone through the roof. No position, maybe quarterback, because quarterbacks will take quarterback out of it, but no position other than quarterback has seen that type of inflation and seen that type of ballooning in value.
No, because even if you want to look at one of the other positions that probably has gotten the closest is defensive tackle, but that's only at the top end.
It's only at the top end. Even second wide receivers now, number twos are making like $25 million a year.
Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy.
I mean, and guys that they think will be number twos are making really good money.
Yeah.
So
and then, like I said, look at what they're giving up for guys who, man, what you're giving up a 4th round pick for a guy who one team determined was a bust, and the Cowboys are like, nah, we'll turn him into something. We'll turn him into something. It's like, you better be right about that.
And I mean, you're talking about 9 games left in the season. 4 of those at least, Dak's gonna miss.
Yep.
So you're gonna say, well, we need to get him in now for those 5 games that he'll play with Dak.
Yeah. To determine whether he's gonna be, we should invest him in the future.
Or we can just wait till the end of the season when you're just trying to get rid of him at that point because you're not playing him anymore. And we walk in with a 6 and you go, cool, we'll take a 6 to take his contract.
Yeah. I don't really understand the move, but I did say the Cowboys need to make a move. They made a move. So
not what I meant, Cowboys.
That's not what I meant at all, but I said they should make a move. They made a move. That is a move. The Panthers, since we never talk about the Panthers, is a perfect opportunity to just talk about the Panthers for a second since they are relevant here with this trade. I said by the end of the year, my prediction was that JT Sanders would start by the end of the year for the Carolina Panthers. He's been starting for a while for them, actually. So it was by the end of the year. It's been starting for a while. And now in the last few weeks, though, in the last month, he's really started to hit his stride with the Panthers. Hell, maybe that's who the Cowboys should have been trying to trade for. But if you go look at it, the last month, his yards per route run is at 2.46. He was tight end, basically number 16, looking at yards per route run on the season, 1.41. And that was like right in between Jake Ferguson and David Njoku. So he was right there, kind of in between those guys. But over the past month, he's at 2.46 yards per route run. He's killing it. And he's got double digit. I think you got points per reception in 3 of the last 4 games, 23% target per route run rate, and 2.43 yards per route run. He's been phenomenal. He's been one of the better tight ends actually in the league in the last month. So shout out to, and he had that highlight reel play that he had in the last game. I think it was like a 40-something yard run. He's actually had 4 20+ yard receptions, and he's averaging 10 yards per reception already on the season. And yeah, he had a long catch and run of 46 yards. JT Sanders is actually looking really, really good early on here with the Carolina Panthers. So that's one that got a bright spot for them.
It is. And we're going to see, I think Jonathan Brooks is supposed to come back this week and make his debut for the Panthers.
That would be nice.
So if we get to see Jonathan Brooks on that team as well, that was kind of what we've been excited to see as Longhorn fans on the Panthers team. It was both those guys playing together. So that'll be another interesting one to see what they do with him because, I mean, that run game under Dave Canales has actually been decent.
Oh, yeah. That's his calling card. He loves a good run game.
But, I mean, like Chuba Hubbard hadn't looked really like anything for them, kind of a bust for them as well. And now he's stepping up and playing a lot better. They have Miles Sanders on that team as well. Again, guys you could have traded for right back. But
Cowboys.
They have a couple of guys. But I think, you can move on from Miles Sanders now. And if you keep Chuba Hubbard and Jonathan Brooks, that's a really good room for a little bit.
I like that. Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm gonna have to try to figure out if Jay Brooks is gonna play. Somewhere to try to watch some of that game. When the hell can you catch the Panthers on television? Never. So I got to find somewhere where I can go watch some Carolina Panthers football because JT Sanders and Jonathan Brooks are going to end up starting on the same offense at one point. That's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, they're playing it will be on TV this week.
Oh, what?
They are in Munich playing the Giants.
Oh, you're right. There you
So
go.
it will be on
Okay.
NFL Network at 8:30 in the morning on Sunday. You can watch if Jonathan Brooks shows up in Munich. You can watch those. You can watch the Panthers this week. It will be on TV.
There you go. I appreciate that, Patrick. See, there you go. That's why Patrick's the real MVP around here. All right. So we talked a lot of Cowboys. Let's talk some Texans as well, since we got a little time here. I saw this stat about the Texans, and it just made me depressed pretty much. The Texans have allowed the most pressures this season on their quarterback. They've allowed 136 pressures on the season. That is the most by any team in the league. As a matter of fact, they have faced the 17th most pressures. At least they've allowed the 17th most pressures on their quarterback since in the first 9 weeks of any teams in a season since 2000. So essentially, CJ Stroud has faced the 17th most pressures of any quarterback in the first 9 weeks of any season in the last 24 years. I told you guys I do have a panic button. Not going to press the panic button yet because the Texans still got time to figure things out, and I still think they're going to end up winning the division because the division is so bad. But man, the Texans pass protection, it's looking like one of the worst in the league at this point. It's definitely the worst among winning teams. I think it's the worst pass protection among teams that have winning records.
Yeah,
and the Bears are probably in that conversation. The Seahawks have a winning record, I believe, too, right? Yeah, Seahawks are probably in that conversation. There are a few teams who they don't have great pass protection with winning records, but I think the Texans are the worst.
What's really confusing about the Texans one is they spent so much draft capital, and it didn't seem like those guys were going to be as bad as they were together. And then now Kenyon Green is just, I don't know what happened to him, but he is playing awful right now. And then we know he keeps getting hurt and coming back. Then, they wanted to have Patterson come in for him a little bit, but then he got hurt. He got concussed. So we don't know if he can come in. And, that was one of their safeties they drafted, moved him over to guard to play. So they're trying to figure out somebody. They have Kendrick Green that they're trying to put over there. But you can't have, we just talked the elite defensive tackles. You have to play one of them on the Chiefs. They know where to line up. And they're just going to go at that left guard position over and over again until you can figure out a way to stop it. But, yeah, at some point, you have to figure out a way to try and scheme something or do something to get this offensive line to play a little bit better or move on to a different coach or do something. Because everything you've done so far, you limited the pre-snap penalties, and now they're worse.
It would seem that way. Yeah. I don't know how they have gotten worse in pass protection every week. That's why I think it's more because the running game has gotten better. That's just crazy. The running game is supposed to help them mitigate some of the pass protection issues, but they're still getting worse in pass protection, yet they do have a running game. So I think it's more that CJ Stroud has not had his complement of weapons without Nico Collins. So my hope is that Nico Collins added back to the mix. That he's such a impactful player that there will be a reverberating effect that'll help the pass protection too, because CJ Stroud will have to get the ball out quicker. Maybe it'll clean up and clarify some of the pre-snap shell looks that CJ Stroud has to see, because teams won't be able to play as many mind games with him with disguises because they'll have to get to their alignment and assignment with Nico Collins back on the field. Opens up things for Dalton Schultz and Tank Dell. That's the hope. I don't know if that is going to be the case, because when Nico Collins went down, that's when your pass protection issues really started to become, I think, problematic. That's when you were leaky, but your leaks became, the dam just burst when Nico Collins went down. And I wonder if now him coming back, or whenever he comes back, if it'll solve a lot of those issues. I think that's the hope for the Texans, because whatever they're doing in terms of the scheme, the adjustments they're making there, and the coaching adjustments they're making, it ain't working. Here's my last stat for you, just to cap off that point that it's not working, whatever they're doing. They've allowed 50 unblocked pressures so far this season. 50. What nobody even touches the dude. Just clean to your guy coming clean to your quarterback. That's easily the most in the NFL. It ain't even close. where a guy don't even put a hand on him. Don't put a hand on him, elbow on him. Don't, hip check him, anything. Just comes free with a shot on CJ Stroud, your most valuable commodity, the face of your franchise. Just free licks on him. That's a problem, man. And if CJ Stroud gets hurt, there needs to be a price paid in terms of the Texans. Like there needs to be a coach that has to pay the price for that with their job, or y'all need to make some changes on the offensive line. So maybe some guys need to be benched as a result, because that's where it's trending. I'm gonna knock on wood, but that's where it's trending. Free shots on your quarterback, unblocked.
Yeah,
that's crazy, man.
Guy running every single throw.
It's scramble drill every time. So the Texans got to get that fixed, man. They got to get that fixed, and they got to do it in the next couple of weeks here, because down the stretch, the schedule it don't get any easier. All right, we'll come back. We'll get ready to wrap this thing up and put it in the oven. Before we do, we'll play Who Said That. That's when Patrick plays pieces of audio from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world, and based on the context clues or familiarity of the voice, you have to identify and recall who said that. We'll play it when we come back right here on The Horn. Right, I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis, featuring my man Patrick Davis, coming right back here on The Horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a top of the charts Tuesday on the show. That's when my co-host, the Idillionaire Patrick Davis, plays jams that reach the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. So we appreciate him there. He also comes up with the topic for the big fat poll of the day, which is already posted at the Horn ATX on X. Simple question: how many rushing yards will Florida have against Texas? And right now, 58% of you say between 75 and 125 rushing yards will be allowed by the Texas defense versus Florida. And then another 19% of you say between 0 and 75 yards. So go check out our topic for the big fat poll of the day. Also, we time to play Who Said That. That's when Patrick plays pieces of audio from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world, and based on the context clues or familiarity of the voice, you have to recall and identify who said that.
I just hope they got some good food. I'm a picky eater, so I just hope they got something I can eat.
They have good chocolate.
I don't eat candy like this.
Well, what are your no-goes? You say you're a picky eater. What are your no-goes?
Yeah, I don't eat seafood. I don't eat like peppers and onions and all that. I don't really eat vegetables like this.
What? So you eat like pizza?
and like I just started eating asparagus. I eat like string beans and green peas. But
That's not a
it.
Do they have
surprise
to
for
be
some
cooked in
reason.
bacon grease?
Hmm?
Do they have to be cooked in bacon grease?
No. That ain't like that.
Pasta?
Yeah, I eat some pasta.
Okay.
Yeah, I eat some pasta.
Chicken, steak, all the regular stuff.
Yeah, all
No
the regular.
seafood though?
Nah, I'm allergic.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll give you that one.
Wow, that southern drawl, man, that is a hell of a southern. It is
It's so
strong.
good.
Allergic.
Oh,
Wow.
Who
is that?
That is Xavier Legette, the Carolina wide receiver, talking about hoping that they have good food in Germany because he's picky eater. So his concern about going to Germany was that he was not going to have the food. Like, dude, they are not going to be able to understand you in Germany.
They are not going to be. They don't think you speak in some other language other than English. That's a strong southern accent right there.
It's such a great accent.
Wow. I don't think I've ever heard an accent that strong, like from the deep south.
No.
That's like deep south accent right there. There's the south and there's deep south.
No, because that guy
That's
doesn't
deep south.
normally get out and then make the NFL.
Yeah, you're right. That's how deep it is. Usually nobody hears from you when you're that deep in the South. Trust me. I got family in Louisiana that's deep South like that. But they're Cajun. They're like Creole. So
yeah,
they talk like that. But his not even like Creole. It's just like a southern drawl. Allergic. Oh, man. I was like, what? That is amazing. It sounds like a character, like a Matthew McConaughey film or something.
So good.
All right. It is really good. All right. Thank you, Patrick, for everything you do. Remember, the revolution will not be televised. We'll be talking about it right here on the Rodcast. We love you guys. We mean that. Take care of yourselves, but more importantly, take care of each other. Until next time, hook 'em and peace.